I'd like to call this meeting of the Coventry Town Council to order at 6:01 p.m. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Here.
Councilmember Capaldi.
Here.
Councilmember Shockley.
Here.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Here.
President Lima.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the event of an emergency, those present this evening can exit outdoors labeled either number 1 or 2 in the back of council chambers to the back parking lot or front lawn of Town Hall. Moving on to public comment on docketed items only, those items on our agenda. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a public comment on docketed items only? Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Make sure the microphone is switched on. Can you just turn the microphone on? There you go.
Thanks. Erin Coyne, 1470 Hackney Hill Road, Coventry. Good evening. I want to start by saying thank you for your service to the town. You hold a very important role in our town government, and your responsibility is enormous. I appreciate that as a taxpayer. But in my role as a town citizen, I must use my voice to speak when there is danger of grave injustice. Every department in this town deserves to be justly funded. The police, the public works, all departments need increases to keep up with rising costs. None of us can deny that costs are definitely going up. I'm sure it's felt in all of our pockets, and I feel the pain just like everybody else when the tax bill goes up. But here it is going up, and yet the school department is being categorically punished. While other departments enjoy some relief from inflation, the school department is being told to make cuts. Not trim the fat cuts, but cuts that will be akin to amputation. The list of money that was given to the schools already, such as sewer grant money, SRP pension payments, and crossing guards, are all presented without the full picture image, which details the truth behind these quote-unquote gifts. One such example is the school's appropriation being presented as a $225,000 appropriation, when in fact, $75,000 of that is from Cell Tower Company and has always been money for the schools, only now it's included in the budget where it wasn't before. This is very misleading and means, in fact, there's only $150,000 increase to the schools. In essence, this is really level funding at a time when costs are at an all-time high. I won't go into all the other ways that the details presented by some members of the town council have been misleading, as the school committee has already done so. But suffice it to say, these claims seem biased, to say the least. It seems to me that my town council is one governing body. One governing body voted to approve the teacher contract. Yes, 2 members voted against it, but those who voted against it cannot and should not hold any kind of grudge, so to speak, that the vote didn't turn out the way they wanted. The council as a whole passed the contract. The council as a whole should fund the teacher contract that they passed. Mr. Pasqua, as my district council member, I urge you to consider my words. The teacher contract is good, but it's fair. In fact, it's in line with teacher compensation across the state, as pointed out by the school committee. I'm so tired of the argument about which teachers get paid the most. You can look at it in so many different ways. Can we just dispense with this rhetoric and admit that it is indeed fair and equitable? I believe I heard even the Auditor General himself said that the raises within are reasonable in today's financial climate. So enough. This prejudice towards the school department really has to stop. Think about what you're doing. This is a definition of cutting off your nose to spite your face. Please reconsider your appropriation amount. If you don't, the families of the community are going to be the ones doing without the high quality educational services our students and families deserve. The Auditor General urges you to work with the school department to come up with a reasonable compromise, and I urge the same. At the last school committee meeting, both Mr. Pearson and Mr. Coward said that they would be happy to participate in a joint meeting, either public or private, between the school committee and the town council. So I eagerly await the announcement of this work session taking place before the vote. One final thought. Mr. Coward could have easily decided to cut sports and other after-school activities instead of jobs and services, but he didn't. Why? Because he doesn't want to take away something that brings joy, enthusiasm, and motivation to so many students. He is the real deal. He cares first and foremost about students and families. Please show us that you feel the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? State your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Michelle Cohen, 2 Driftwood Drive. I have been living in the town of Coventry for 20 years. I also have 2 children in the schools. One is in 6th grade, going into 7th, and one of them is going into the high school. I am completely appalled at the lack of funding that the schools will be getting and the type of cuts and changes that will need to happen. Max class sizes, support staff that will need to be cut. But one of the ones that hits home for me is the AP classes and the electives that will need to be changed at the high school. My son, the one that's going into high school, is a stellar student. He has gone through Coventry Public Schools since he was 3 years old in the preschool program, and I have sworn by Coventry Schools. He is in the National Junior Honor Society. He has been on the boys soccer team for the last 3 years of middle school. So I applaud the school department for not cutting sports because that will cut his heart. He will be devastated and never want to come to Coventry Schools again. But he's also been recommended for all honors classes. And this leads to the path of AP courses in the future. So with those being cut now, I'm just afraid of what cuts will be made in the future to come. I also feel that this will lead us to look out of district. That breaks my heart. Lots of our friends' children are going out of district. That's costing the town hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Ponagansett is getting swarms of our money. And it's because they're offering programs. They're not making these cuts that are affecting students and colleges in the future. So I please ask you to look at funds. I understand that everyone is strapped for money. The initial plan, when I was watching some of the past meetings, there was a talk of $1 million that was going to be budgeted towards the schools. I'm not sure if I misunderstood something, but I believe that was back in December. That would represent at least a 2% increase for the school's budget, which would help with alleviating some of these cuts that Mr. Cower is proposing. I applaud the town for trying hard to balance a budget. I applaud the school for trying to make cuts that are not going to completely devastate our community, but it's not enough. The Auditor General has warned us that we are in this spiral going downward and that we need to work together. It's not an us versus them, which it has become. And I'm not saying one side is to blame, but we are a community. A definition of a community is working together to make all parts of Coventry what we want it to be. I understand there are some people who don't have children in the schools, but the schools and the children are what make our future. They are the future taxpayers. So I please, please, please beg you to reconsider what budget you will allocate to the schools and make it a fair one and work with them. Talk with them about what we can do as a community to make this work for everyone that is being affected. Thank you.
Hi, Trisha Hunt, 526 Camp Westwood Road. As you look at the budget tonight, I was just hoping that we could have in the forefront of our mind a sense of professionalism and a sense of unity on the town council. I think in previous meetings, and I've spoke that it feels very divided, and that's how a lot of us are interpreting the interactions of town council and the actions of town council and school committee as two separate entities. And although they are, I think that we as a community are really asking for you to represent our whole town, not one side versus the other, that we really are a town that I've grown up in since I was 5 years old, that I came back to raise my own family because of my positive schooling experience. I think it's clear councils divided are really only going to further our downfall. As Ms. Coyne spoke so eloquently, yes, I understand that we were divided in the contract vote, but you are a one body that made that collective decision. So I hope that you can move forward in thinking about that in the operating budget and what the school needs in order to operate without going into a deficit again. I think there have been a lot of misconceptions back and forth that I really hope we can just stop, because it's confusing for people who don't know a lot about budgets and what goes on. I think that there's some misconceptions about the school department and the decisions that they're making with their budgets. There are a lot that is non-negotiable for them, that they can't move forward. And with inflation, what it has been, not giving them that increase is only going to further cause deficits that leads to things that they can't tackle, like septic systems, like well water, which I know is being addressed, but it's just an example of when we continue to cut this budget, these are the things that happen. And then town council feels like they have to come and save the day in a way and gift these monies that really are one-time expenditures and not part of operational budgets, which I know you know the difference between. We've already talked about the $250,000 and how the $75,000 kind of became part of that, which I think felt really confusing for taxpayers who don't know line by line items. So I hope that things like that can be more clearly identified moving forward. The last thing is just, I want you to keep in mind who you're representing. And I know there's 30% and there's residents of Johnson's Pond, and there just is a lot of upset feelings about this. But really, when you think about the children that are attending these schools, they have nobody to represent them. They are just kids that are a part of this community that come to school and they want a fighting chance every day, and they deserve to be a part of a class, a school, and a community that can provide them all the experiences that they need to move forward in their own lives. So I just hope as you think about the budget that you know that you have it within your means to make compromises. I think that Councilwoman Shockley did a great job two meetings ago of really highlighting some of those ways. So I'm just asking, as you think about the budget, that you continue to think about the compromises that can be made so that every department can get a fair share. Thank you.
Members of the council, I'm Ann Dixon, 141 Perry Hill Road. I was a member of the school committee for 6 years, 2018 to 2022, and a member of the town council for 4 years, 2018 to 2022, serving as a president for the last 2 years. I've been through at least 10 budget cycles, and this year I note many themes that are repetitive and need resolution. School deficits were predicted. Septic issues at the high school are nothing new. Cell phone tower money is nothing new. Staff costs are nothing new. The rhetoric around these issues is all too familiar, and each side is expounding the righteousness of a different point of view. There are too many areas of conflict, and the budget vote to approve will not solve these problems. So this is my ask. I am asking the council to reject the budget. Give yourself time to meet as a body with the school committee to reach consensus on issues that are sources of contention. A community should not have to bring the state to resolve issues. Now, I know you will say that you have had many meetings and that were considered ample time to meet. Obviously, these meetings have not been fruitful. Consensus is a very arduous task. It requires each side to consider the true course of decisions and balance the decisions against the benefits, if any. To approve the budget now will not be motivating for the town and the school to sit together to resolve conflict. I understand that many businesses and school districts that face the prospect of an unbalanced budget are urged to cut staff. But when that happens, the entire business or educational model for delivering these services changes. Yes, the school and business can cut staff. Well, what is the cost for this action, and how does it affect the educational and community vision for the community? A judicious and thoughtful process between both the town and the school side should start with a shared vision, and then a decision on cut on both the town and school side need to be considered. I repeat, there must be a balance between the benefit of approving the manager's recommended budget and the long-term cost of the decision. A budget to approve tonight will not make dirty water go away. It will not improve school performance with the reduction of programs. It will not resolve deficits, both past ones and potential future ones. It will only delay inevitable problems next year and the next. So I urge the council to vote to reject the proposed manager's budget, make a commitment to meet with the school committee to resolve issues rather than push them again to the next budget cycle. I thank you for your consideration.
Hi, Renee Smith, 3 Wildflower Drive. So first off, I'm the chair of the Special Education Local Advisory Committee, the CLAC. So I'm trying to represent myself as well as the CLAC. So I want you to understand that as town representatives, you don't just represent one side of the town, as been said previously, but you represent the whole town. So the image that we see here through the town, through the state, everywhere else, is that if you're not putting in an effort to properly fund our schools, then you're not putting in the effort towards the town. And that's something that is going to reverberate through, again, the town, the state, and so on. So please consider meeting with the school committee, having a joint public meeting so that these issues, or private meetings and a public meeting as well, so that these issues can be resolved. I actually asked if you can open up your schedules today and schedule something so that it doesn't get thrown over to the wayside and forgotten and not done. Also, I want to say that the refusal to not work together is just absolutely petty and appalling. And again, you got to remember that there's a lot of eyes on you, not just your constituents here in Coventry. The cuts to special education services will be causing lots of challenges to kids that already have challenges and issues, as well as been mentioned previously, the cuts throughout the schools for typical kids and high school kids and so on. So again, I did listen to the town meeting that you had, I think it was last week. And thank you, Rep. Shockley, Town Council Shockley, sorry, for the suggestions that you made. I did hear somebody mention something about moving money around and there was freed up money. And then I heard somebody say, but that money is not going to go to the school. Again, that is absolutely petty and appalling to hear that this is turning into, like somebody said before, a we versus them. And it sounds like you're doing this for personal reasons and to spite the school committee. So again, I do ask you, what Ann had said earlier is to reject the budget and meet together with the school and come up with a fair budget for the school. Thank you.
Good evening. Anna Isabel Dos Reis Kutu, 611 Weaver Hill Road. Good afternoon, Town Council President, Town Council, Town Manager, and all here. As a resident and member of the Coventry Public School Committee, President of Coventry and Public School Committee member of 32 years with my children who attended and graduated Coventry High and grandchildren attending our schools today, I am deeply invested in our community's educational quality. Despite financial challenges due to rising living costs and inflation, it's crucial to prioritize adequate funding for education. The Town Council's thinking in the lack of increase in funding will be unsustainable to our school's operation budget. given the 3.1 inflation rate and the uptick of cost of living. Continued cuts to education spending threaten student achievement and future prospects. Investing in public schools isn't just about the budgets. It's an investment in our collective future. Adequate funding ensures equal opportunities for all students and supports vital resources and programs in the town of Coventry. Research emphasizes the positive impact of increased investment in K through 12 education, coupled with robust pathways and trades that ensures equal opportunities for all students and correlates with improved student outcomes, higher education rates, and enhanced workforce preparedness. The stark reality of today's rapidly evolving, highly dynamic environment is the pace of education that is changing. And while acknowledging economic constraints, collaborative efforts and leadership meetings between the town council, school administration, and committees are essential. By prioritizing education, we can ensure a prosperous future for our community one where families choose to settle for the promise of quality education. We are at a pivotal point with our public schools and education. We can either help students discover and fulfill their potential or derail them in their education journey. I urge the town council to work alongside the school administration and committee to provide the necessary financial support, safeguarding our schools from drastic cuts. Our students deserve nothing less than an exceptional education. So as you think about the budget, please consider all the things that are on the table and that the community has come to say. It is important and imperative that we invest in our schools, for that is where we will bring new families, more tax revenue. And I understand that schools are not revenue making, but at the end of the day, it is the schools that bring people to our town. It's not a retirement facility. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you taking the consideration.
My name is Dave Florio. I live at 153 Princeton Avenue. I've been there since August 1985, and before that, I lived at Pilgrim Park. So in 1982. So I've seen a lot. I was chair of the Juvenile Hearing Board. I was appointed to the Planning Commission, which I served on until 2011, when I had a quadruple bypass. And then I ran for school committee to replace a vacant position that was there by Nancy Springermeyer. Now, I know you all, and I respect you all, but I'm not going to talk about the schools. I'm going to speak about the ramifications of the cut for the people in Oak Haven. The people in Oak Haven, most of us are empty nesters, and our children have done exceptionally well. One of them is also a manager of the Tampa Bay Rays. We have been hurt by the closing of Oak Haven School. Now it's being considered as a bus depot, where the school buses are going to a residential, a bedroom residential community, where there are a lot of retirees and a lot of elders who live there. And the impact is going to be felt. And it's a result of the school department's bus service being evicted to the point where they can't find any other place except Oak Haven Elementary. And it's a good plan, but it's going to involve so many neighbors. I live 4 houses down, but it's going to impact people who live right around the school. And there are many. Some of them have husbands and wives who were affected by the station fire in 2002. It's devastating to District 4. to have this done. And I'm trying to work with people and the superintendent for assistance. But I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I've been on the school committee for 12 years. I'm 68 years old, and I have no more fight left in me. I respect you all you I respect. Don't let this happen, because when you there's more than just cutting programs for kids, and more than just cutting school department and laying off hundreds of TAs. It's just meaning teacher assistants and expanding class sizes, 28 again across the district. It's more than that. What happens is it does affect the seniors, because they don't want to hear buses starting up at 5:30 in the morning or leaving, coming by the schools and creating traffic. We really don't know what the effects are going to be. But all I can say is the Oak Haven community are very concerned right now. And that's all I have to say. Thank you all. You are all great leaders. And I will never criticize you, because you have nothing to be criticized for. We can talk. We can all talk together, and we can all resolve issues. I love you all. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
He was actually waiting in line.
I didn't see him. Go ahead.
Thank you for your patience.
Good evening. I'm John Juicy III, 9 Rigglewood Drive. First and foremost, I just want to thank you guys for having us here tonight, and the meeting allows us to speak. Want to thank each and every member here, town council, but also school council as well, for being here. Now, there's 3 main points I'm hoping to make tonight. I'll keep it brief, but the first one is that I care and that we all care. The second one is that the investment in our future, and the third is teamwork. So to begin off with, I care. You know, I care because I've been a Coventry citizen for the majority of my life. I moved away, came back. I have 3 young kids, coach them in sports. They're all part of the school system, public school system, and multiple nieces and nephews as well, family and friends. And it's tough as a parent to balance everything and to be here. So sometimes you don't see parents here. It's not that they don't care. It's just that sometimes, as you know, there's other things going on. Like I'm missing a practice right now, but this is important. One thing, I know that we care, I know that you care, but not fully funding for education kind of goes against what the agreed upon, I think it was before, if I recall, roughly around 2% increase. I know we asked for, the school asked for 4%. I believe before it was like, hey, we'll be willing to give you 2%. Now it's about 0.5%. That kind of flies in the face, and maybe it's almost looking like, well, maybe we don't get that support that you guys care as much as we thought. I'm not saying that you don't, but it appears sometimes in that way. And people will respond. They'll respond a couple of different ways. They may just let their kids flounder around in school with a lack of support, and others will take action and they'll send their kids to Pontiac or private schools. And then other people will say, you know what, I'm not going to move to Coventry. So there's definitely ramifications, and I know we're all going to make sacrifices. There's sacrifices that are going to be made one way or another. I just hope that we can put at the forefront the importance of the education. Which brings us to the second part, the investment in the future. And, you know, the youth are future leaders, innovators, workers within society. You know, I'm sort of a product of Coventry. I went to a private school for about 3 months. I transferred back to Coventry because I had a community here, and I had a lot of reasons to go elsewhere. But we continue to, if we can continue to allocate the proper resources to the educational system, I think as parents and taxpayers, that'll be a big benefit. And we entrust in you as elected officials to make the right decisions for us. You know, there's a lot of other things outside of these walls that happen, but we put our trust in you and the school council as well. And the last part is the teamwork. You know, we rely on you guys. We know that, you know, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it, a lot of work, and especially the budgeting line by line is a lot. I mean, I've seen a lot of the stuff that goes into it. But I think by sacrificing education, pushing it to the background, or at least what it appears to be, it's in direct opposition to constructing a prosperous future. And, you know, Nelson Mandela had a very famous quote that many of you may know, especially being in education, but education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So really the ask is to work with both sides to strive to get as much support we can for the school, for the children, so that they can be our future and one day be in these positions, and really we can thrive together. So with that, thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Hi, I just have my name's Claudia Hoxie, 110 Yale Drive, and I live in Oak Haven. I just wanted to add to what Mr. Florio said, that the impact on the neighborhood if you move the buses to Oak Haven is going to impact the conditions of the roads, which are already in rough shape. The kids are not going to be safely able to play on the roads, ride their bikes with all these buses coming into this community. And just wanted to make our feelings known that it is a concern. And thank you for your time.
John Kelly, 39 Remington Farm Drive. I'm just like to take a second to say that two of the people that got up to speak today are products of Coventry High School in the last 20 years. I think that shows better than anyone can say the work that we do, the work that our school department does. And that's the unspoken work. Coventry is a very, I grew up in Providence. Coventry is a very different community in the sense that people don't leave Coventry like they do Providence or Cranston. They stay. But by not funding the school department, you're cutting it away. You're going to destroy that. So the people who care about this community, who have an investment in this community, you're telling them through your actions or inactions that it doesn't matter, that they don't matter. Make no mistake about that. That's the message that's being sent. Some of you sitting on this town council were very upset about the way the vote went last year. You've made that very plain and clear. You've made that plain and clear through your actions, through your unwillingness to sit down and speak with the school committee throughout this year. Everybody is aware of that. There's nothing unspoken about that. But some of you are more concerned about being right and saying, I told you so, than anything else. And just sometimes being caring is more important than being right. I just urge you all, be caring about your community, about the people that about the people that have entrusted you to stand for them. Thank you.
Kim Sturtle, 20 Catawba Way. At the last town council meeting, I asked about the investigations of this mismanagement of funds under the previous town manager and finance director. Why am I bringing this up now when we're talking about the budget? Just as the previous administration did this town the injustice, just to remind some of the people who may not know. One of the examples of this would be when they were investigating some of the bank accounts, they found over $1 million in a closed bank account at Centerville Bank from the last administration. As Council Member Kim Shockley stated in a recent meeting, increasing one town's budget over the department head's request and not adding the difference to the school department is doing injustice to the school and to the town. A comment was made after that by President Lima that she wasn't going to entertain giving the school department any more money. I'm asking the council to rethink about the budget that's put forth, that is put forward to you today. You all should want to be the council that is known as the one who stepped up and fixed the mess the last administration left us and helped fix the closure of the budget in the school department. For the better of the citizens and this, children of this country, I'm asking you to do just that. Thank you.
Tammy Anderson, 5710 Flat River Road. I am also the SRP president, and I am asking you to please reconsider the budget and give the schools what they need. I was told today the proposed cuts to the SRP is going to be well over 100 staff members. We are the members who are the backbones of the school. We're the clerks, the custodians, and we are the TAs who work with the special ed students. In August, you all approved our contract and increased our TAs from 4 hours to 7 hours because we have such a hard time hiring people. And now here we are looking at laying off 100 TAs. Please reconsider what you are allocating to the town, to the school, and go back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Hello, Tim Carroll, 31 Highland Avenue. I'm a little unprepared for this. I don't have a very well-written speech or anything. I just wanted to say that it seems like, from my perspective, that there's a lot of interpersonal politics that is really at play here, that maybe there's some bad feelings between you guys and the school committee. And I just wanted it to be known that really think about it, because you guys are not voting to fund the school committee. You're voting to fund our children. And our children are the future of this community, the future of the state, the future of this country. And I think it's a real shame for us to just take funding away from that. These kids need more. They deserve better. The most vulnerable aspects of our community are the elderly and our children. And I really, really hope that you remember why you guys are sitting in those chairs, why you wanted to be in these positions and to take care of our children. Thank you.
Hi, Kelly Renakis, President of the Coventry Teachers Alliance, 3 Hazel Street, Coventry. Just want to mention a couple of things that you're all aware of. My largest concern is the structural deficit that's going to be created by this budget. So if the school district asked for roughly $3.8 million this year, and you give them a little over 100,000, I think Ms. Shockley had said it in one of the meetings that I watched. What's the end game? Where do you go from here? I teach the spectrum of students. So many of you know I teach an AP class, AP Government and Politics, and I also teach behavioral students. I like both sides. It's kind of my split personality. What's going to happen? One of the gentlemen that spoke, Mr. Kelly, I had his son in class. His son graduated from URI in 3 years rather than 4 because of all the college credits he got by taking AP classes. If you can't offer those classes to those students, parents aren't stupid. College is extremely expensive. You're going to make sure you go to a place that can lessen your college tuition bill. On the opposite end, the SRP president spoke about cutting 100 teacher assistants. And I don't want people to think that's because they can cut them. It's because they have to cut them. So the other set of students that I teach that have social, emotional, and behavioral issues, I'm not the largest person, but luckily I have a large personality in class and my kids kind of settle in for me. But without those teacher assistants removing certain kids from classes, calming them down, de-escalating, we have many people, our workers' comp claims are high because we have kids that are very, very volatile. Kids at the high school are large. Removing all those teacher assistants from special education classes, whether they're there for emotional support, behavioral support, or academic support, definitely hurts the kids. I try to make it a point not to reach out and to speak to anybody individually, to let you guys do your thing. I have 28 years in the district. To the pleasure of some of you, I'm sure I'll be leaving at some point. I got divorced. I moved out of Coventry. I live in Situate now. Very nice, small school system. I do worry about Coventry. I spent my life here educating students. I know so many of these parents that are here because I had their students in class. I ask you to look at, as Ms. Shockley said, to what end? If you create this structural deficit now, it's never going away. You know, back when I became a teacher, we used to have programs at the elementary school, probably improperly named, but at the time, ages ago, called the Gifted and Talented Program. And that was to try to keep getting kids to achieve higher and higher levels. Those were wiped away by budgets years and years ago. We had so many special programs that made our school so special. Everyone came to Coventry to see what we were doing in education because we were doing it right. And over my career, that has waned, and a lot of it's because budget cuts. I don't know if you realize everyone aspires to higher academics for our kids. I don't think I teach because I want kids to do poorly. You know, we give our all. If you follow my tweet, I was here all Sunday with kids studying for the exam. I took them all out to breakfast with my own money. I'll buy them signs with my own money. I care about the kids in Coventry. But when you keep decreasing staff, not because you can, some of you can because there's been some enrollment changes and some of the staff can be cut and you can max classrooms out. But now you're maxing classrooms out across the board. You're losing service for kids in reading, in writing, in math, and in special education. At what point don't you see you cannot improve the academics when you keep taking away? If you just look at the state of Rhode Island, you all listen to the news. Almost every single district around us is building brand new schools. That's quite the lure when you can send your kid anywhere now. All you have to say is, oh, I want to go to that program at Pontigansett. Pontigansett hasn't cut their budget in forever. They just keep taking that money and dumping it back into the schools to make new schools, create new programs, and get that lure. We haven't done anything in Coventry to lure people. I know the council is looking to pass a bond, but the bond's not building a new school. It's not creating new spaces. It's fixing a gym, which has to be fixed to keep accreditation at the high school. We have an auditorium for grants, but it's not doing anything educationally. So I just ask you to look as I'll leave here and move on from Coventry and still wish everyone in this town all the best. What are you doing structurally to the schools? And please really think about that because that is going to affect your tax base. You know, a lot of the larger homes in Coventry are for sale and they're selling for a hell of a lot of money. I know because I couldn't afford one, hence I had to move to Situate. You're not going to get those families buying that houses. So what you're doing will affect the entire town. And I don't like the pitting. I don't care if it's police. I don't care if it's municipal. I looked at your budget, your department had raises. This is the economy where Social Security gave a 9% raise last year. Everything's going up. My homeowner's insurance just went up by $600. My car insurance went up by $300. My taxes are going up by $700. As citizens of any town, we all know that happens, but you have to look at your full allocation and make sure you're doing it fairly. And I have to say, as you look at the budget, if the schools are 76% of the town's budget, they're not receiving 76% of the allocation that's collected. And I'm not saying they should, but at some point when you spread what the town has and who pays what, you have to be fair in those allocations. And to give the schools $125,000, when you did approve 2 contracts, as you did, and like I said, the raises for your department heads, they're all well earned, but you can't do something and then not help fund it. So I too ask you to reconsider. I do care about the future of Coventry Public Schools. And if you take a supermajority vote to pass this, I think it's very well misplaced. And that's from a person who thought that the whole contention with the town of not getting a budget passed and going to another referendum was absurd. I spoke to certain council members and advocated for certain changes to the charter. But I hope that the power is not abused and you just do a supermajority to do something that's not going to help the town overall. But I thank you for your time.
Oh, come on down.
Hello. Grace Carroll, 31 Highland Ave. Hi. Oh, Grace Carroll, 31 Highland Ave. Thank you. I'm just adding my voice to the many here who are asking for more time and conversation with this budget. And that's it. Thanks.
They want to cut somebody again. Don Coward, Superintendent of Schools in Coventry. I prepared a number of points I wanted to speak on, but I'm happy to see so many residents here and speaking and voicing their thoughts. And some of the things I was going to say, they've actually said. And so to save time and be efficient, I'm not going to repeat things. But I will say it's important to note, and I think the town manager noted it at a town council meeting. I noted it at a school committee meeting. Mr. DeVerna and Mr. Savetti and I, along with the town manager, were able to sit in a meeting with the Auditor General's office. We went through and looked at what our 24 allocation was. And he had some questions about how we are making it through this year, which we're working on. He also specifically asked about how we were going to make it through 25 based on the allocation that has been proposed in the provisional budget that's been approved. And he made a point of saying, even though he doesn't have the authority to tell us what to do or the funds to give us to make our budget easier to work through, he did say, you know, from his position, he felt it was in the best interest of our community to work together and to make sure that the school did their part in terms of making some difficult decisions and cuts where they could be made, but also that the town council did their part and to consider the allocations that they are giving us, because in the future, we would be looking at many years of structural deficits year after year, because at some point, there's nothing left to cut. There's no more meat on the bone. And those structural deficits will not just reflect poorly on the school department, but they'll reflect poorly on the whole community, on the whole town. And that's something that I think would be completely disappointing and not the reason why I work here and not the reason why I got into the job I got into. I will say I'm very happy with the relationship that the town leadership with the manager and the finance director, Christopher and I have. We meet every other week or more often when necessary. We communicate honestly. We don't always agree. We're respectful. And I think we get things done. And I'd like to see that good work ethic and cooperation continue, but I'd also like to see it expand so that the people in the community know that we have their best interests as one community, not as, you know, one side of the street versus another side of the street. So I will say that we're available, we're willing, we're able to meet. Have never turned down an invitation to sit down with anybody. And I think there are ways to increase this budget. I've heard conversations at different meetings, and doing so, I think, gives us all an opportunity to be successful, and that if you don't, it would seem counterproductive to what's in the best interest of the community. Thanks.
Any other members of the public here in chambers before I go to Zoom?
Bradford Mayor, 360 Hope Furnace Road. While I serve on the school committee, these thoughts are my own. We're one community. If the schools fail, the repercussions are felt everywhere. Likewise, if the town fails. I'd like to go over a few items that were listed on a page of school-related items that were disseminated at a recent town council meeting that had no context. For the past 40 years, funding across the entire town for capital improvements has been practically non-existent. So I'm wondering why money's being spent on capital improvements, including the taxpayer-approved bond, federal grants, and ARPA funds are trying to be used against the schools as a reason for not significantly increasing the local appropriations towards the operating budget of the schools. The school SRP pension line item was also presented in the same manner. About 10 years ago, when the state came in and said the SRP pension funding needed to be fixed, the town council at that time wanted it set up this way because they did not want it to become part of the maintenance of effort. The declining school enrollment has also been brought up that way. Around 1,000 students drop in the past 14 years. When you divide that by 7 schools, multiple grades, makes it extremely difficult to realize any staffing changes based purely on those enrollment numbers. However, positions were cut during that time as it was coupled with other factors. And they are not always hired back. You can ask my wife. Many town department heads and staff members recently received or are slated to receive salary increases that are comparable to the recent school teachers and SRP negotiated contracts. It has been stated that this is to attract and retain high-quality employees. I am not saying that the increases are not well-deserved or don't have merit, but is meant to illustrate the fact that the schools are seemingly being penalized for having the largest number of employees after the approval of those contracts, which was also approved by this town council. The Auditor General stated that the recent school contracts were not unreasonable given the current economic climate. Are the schools not allowed to also attract and retain high-quality employees? Do the schools operate in a vacuum and are exempt from the volatile economic climate we are all facing? It's not equitable treatment. The Auditor General also recently said he has serious concerns with the school funding in Coventry. He has recommended that we work together on this issue to come up with a reasonable solution. While he cannot force anything, I hope his words are taken as seriously as they were and have been during the examination of the sewer fund and financial auditing process. I'm calling for the postponement of any budget votes or rejection of this particular budget until at least one joint budget workshop with our two bodies together can be held to try and find a solution together that is amenable to all, not just the schools, not just for the town, everyone, one Coventry. The ball is in your court. Thank you for your time.
I'm not so good at going off the cuff, so I actually wrote down some words. Thank you. James Pearson, 8 Nicole Lane. Off script. Nights like tonight make me really proud to be a member of this community, hearing the people come up and speak so clearly, so well thought out, and not from a position of emotion necessarily, but from a position of really wanting to do what's right for this community. So thank you, everyone who's come up to speak so far. I know I'm supposed to be talking to you, but I'd like to thank them. Well put. First, I want to apologize. I'm able to make the public hearing on Saturday. Saturday is RIASC's annual meeting. And if you do or do not know, school committee members in the state of Rhode Island are required to attend 6 hours of professional development per year. Something I think should apply to other positions in the state as well, including the legislature, but hey, I don't make the laws. So I'm going there and I won't be able to attend. So I hope this is sufficient. I'd like to borrow some words from a great man named Daryl Davis. If you don't know who he is, Google it. For change to happen, you must recognize the similarities. So change in people, changes in things. So we may have differing opinions, but we're all Americans. I may be that guy on the school committee, but we all live in Coventry. We're one town. We're elected or appointed to these roles to represent all the people who live and work in our town. As community leaders, we're looked upon to make the difficult decisions for the good of the people and the good of the community. This is how we restart or start conversations and build bridges. The current mode of communication is not working. It's clear. It's never too late to change. So please work with me and we can move forward. We can change. We can do better for this community. The provisional budget put forward by the council provides inadequate funding towards school operations. You've heard that by the many people who have spoken before me, especially Mr. Cowart, members of the unions. The cuts will have severe and long-term negative impact. I have a lot here I'm cutting out. On May 7th, I'm asking you to soundly reject this budget and immediately resume discussions with the school department to put forth an alternative budget that actually makes sense for the town of Coventry and its people. Thank you.
Any other members here in chambers, public comment on docketed items?
Hi, Chris Taverna, 1 Marion Drive, Coventry. I just wanted to echo Superintendent Cowart's sentiment regarding the relationship that we developed with the town manager and town finance director. I think that's a good sign, and I think it's something that we, can continue to build on. Speaking to just trying to provide a little perspective of where we're at right now, the increase in the local appropriations of about 225,000, as mentioned, 75,000 of that is basically the cell phone tower revenue that's been always budgeted separately in the past, and now is reclassed into that line. So it's really about $150,000 increase. of course, the council has, did approve as a body contracts last year, but even without considering the contracts, one thing that's very difficult for the school to control is really the out-of-district tuitions. And it doesn't take much. And they don't need to notify us when you're doing the budget. This year in general, in particular, one school district, Exeter West Greenwich, went from about $200,000 for tuitions there, and now it's approaching $500,000. If you have a bunch of freshmen, which is what happened, unfortunately, this year, that decide to go out of district, then that's going to increase your costs. And that cost alone is more than what the town is proposing to increase the school's budget by. Please consider, any cuts that you have may change people's perspective and the way they view the school system, and may decide just to send their kids elsewhere, which unfortunately we end up having to pay the bill on that as well. So we can't really escape that. I just want to say that regarding the financial challenges that we face, I think that we have to, they have to be solved together. And I think it's not only will it take some significant cuts and changes from the school side, but it's going to also have to take some effort from the council to provide a more reasonable increase to the local appropriations to fund the schools. So just wanted to provide that perspective, and thank you for your time.
Any other members of the public in chambers?
Hi, Caitlin Brady, 35 Yale Drive. And I didn't think I was going to speak because I'm not very good at this, but I just wanted to add, I agree with everything that has been said, but one more perspective that hasn't been said is that with the 100 TAs who might lose their jobs, TAs have saved my child on multiple occasions. My child elopes from the classroom, from the playground, and they have run to protect him from running into the road on multiple occasions. And if they weren't there to do that, then what would have happened? Like, if they weren't there to protect my child, he could have run into the road, and then where would we be? So I just want to say that I agree with everybody that has come up here, and I know that you'll make the right choice for our town. Thank you.
Last call, council chambers, public comment.
Hello, Michael Madonna, 1151 Plainfield Pike. And so pretty impressive that there's a pretty good turnout tonight. A lot of times there's not. And I agree with a lot of stuff and I disagree with some stuff. But when we took away, or when we voted to take away our right to vote on the budget as residents, we put it in your hands. So all I'm asking is I just hope you listen to the people. I disagree with a lot of them, but we have to actually listen. If that's what we decided to do as a town, put it in the council's hands. I just hope you're listening and I hope this is not a futile exercise. That is all.
Last call, council chambers, public comment. Mr. Houghton, we have 2 hands up on Zoom. State your name and address for the record and unmute yourself.
My name is Dr. Shauna Sinquamani. I live at 395 Hopkins Hill Road. So I am the PTA president at Hopkins Hill Elementary. I am a parent, I am an educator, and I just want to echo what everyone has said so far about delaying or voting down the budget as it stands now. Coventry is already spending less per pupil than the state average. I know that there's been some talk about a decline in enrollment, but as other people have said, a decline in enrollment across kind of the 7 schools that we have in Coventry does not equal the ability to just cut staff, cut teachers. There's nuance there that is not cut and dry. I really, I've lived in Coventry for about 4 years now. I moved here specifically because I heard that the school system was so great. And my son is in 2nd grade at Hopkins Hill, and we've had an amazing experience. But I have to say that this is the 3rd time that I have come to make public comment about the challenges that the school system is facing. And that's a little disheartening. A lot of other people have talked about the importance of funding the schools and the importance of the children. But I want to make sure we remember that these young people are the most vulnerable citizens in our town. They can't speak for themselves, right? They can't just decide to come to a town council meeting and talk to you about why their TAs are important or why their teachers are important. And then to see that the cuts are going to special education services, those are even more vulnerable children that were causing harm. This will cause harm for children. And I'll just kind of add that, as the president of the PTA, I've been on the PTA since my son was in kindergarten, and the primary work that we do is fundraising for our schools, for our teachers. The teachers tell us, they're like, we can't buy Kleenex, we can't buy Clorox wipes, we can't buy soap for our classrooms. If they can't equip their classrooms with the funding that the schools get now, I can't imagine what's going to happen with even less than they need. So please delay. Please talk to the school committee, find a way to work together. We are citizens of this community. We have put our trust in you. And I really need you to hear what everyone has said tonight. Thanks for your time.
Next hand, unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Nelson, 23 Hornbeam Road. I'm a PTO board officer at Black Rock Elementary School, a mom of 3 currently in the Coventry School District, and a resident of Coventry for over 9 years now. First, I personally want to say thank you to everyone that came tonight to speak up. I unfortunately couldn't be there in person, but I'm just so proud of the people of Coventry again tonight for standing up against not just for our kids, not just for our schools, but what's right for the town as a whole. I need to comment that it was shocking to me that town council member Shockley has been the only person on the town council that had an open mind and objective ideas when it came to discussing the budget in regard to the schools and how monies could potentially be allocated to offset actual budget items. We're not talking about petty cash lines here, but operating costs for our schools. Town Council President Lima's words on April 9th sounded like she has a personal vendetta against Superintendent Cowart, but only once he left the building. Honestly, it was disgraceful how she would not even acknowledge Shockley's concerns about the lack of conversation or direction regarding the budget for the schools. How are you proposing the schools continue to grow despite underfunding them? Let me point out that it's nearly impossible to plan strategically when you are in survival mode, which is where our schools are right now. It was mentioned April 9th that only 30% of the townspeople utilize the school district. But the facts are that underfunded schools, as you've heard plenty of times tonight, will deter new families from moving to Coventry. And underfunded schools push, at minimum, high schoolers out of district, thus perpetuating the declining enrollment issue already being faced. I can personally say that my 8th grader is going out of district next year. I am making personal sacrifices to send him to private school, where I can be confident in the programs and services that will be offered over his entire 4 years of high school, unlike the situation here in Coventry, where we have no idea what's going to happen from year to year. The entire school district should not be punished because the high school septic failed, because the water is not drinkable at a school that is, 60, 70 years old now? My dad went there. My grandparents. These buildings are part of the town's capital too, no? So therefore, not just for the 30% of the families that are using the schools, that are using the schools. Refusing to consider allocating money to the school's budget now because of historically bad decisions by previous administration is also the wrong direction. Town council, not funding our schools will be an absolute detriment to the town as a whole. This is not a town council against the school committee situation. This is about doing what's right. Vote down the budget, go back to the drawing board and prioritize the town's future by ensuring our schools are fully funded. Parents are no longer staying quiet and sitting back. We are here here, we're listening, we're learning every day on how this town has been run, how it's changing, what's going on with each of these meetings for today and for our future. We are listening now. We see you. Do what's right for our kids, do what's right for their future, and do what's right for our town as a whole. Thank you.
Unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Doreen Albright, 33 Reed Avenue. I am also a board member at the Black Rock Elementary School. We had quite the fight last winter when the reconfiguration was proposed. And I'd like to say that I've been really, really pleased to see tonight that the school committee has shown up, has basically supported what we've been asking them to do. We've been asking them to back us up on this. Mr. Cowart has been amazing. I was definitely a vocal critic of the school committee and Mr. Cowart during the configuration debate, but I'm so pleased with what I've done since then. He's really trying to do some fix the problem, to make everyone, happy and proud of our schools and provide a good education for our kids. But you're refusing to give him the money he needs to do that. He is fairly new. This isn't an issue up overnight. He created a lot of issues, unfair expenses that have eaten up the budget. Councilwoman Shockley had a great idea. She looked through the proposal, found places where the money wasn't necessarily needed and could be reallocated toward the schools. To just discussing it, when we have in our homes, everyone right now is dealing with the rising prices of food and insurance. We look at our household budget, say, where can we cut money to put it where we need it? There are families canceling their streaming services to afford their grocery bill. There are families off lights to be able to put a little more toward their heating bill. We find ways to make it work in our homes. You should be able to find a way to make it work for our town. I also like to say that during the reconfiguration debate, we were reaching out to town council members, asking them what they thought of it. Alec, for one, just said that it wasn't their job. We're asking them your personal opinion as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as our neighbor. And now you're sitting there with only council trying to come up for us. Look at this budget. It is driving people out of town. I was a real estate agent many years ago and went homes in Western Coventry and elementary school. They wanted to buy the house there. They wanted to come here and people now are leaving because of the schools. If you don't invest in
Ms. Albright, your connection is coming in and out frequently. Can you hear us?
Yes. I will just end by saying that you really need to take a long, hard look at the budget you have in front of you and go along with Councilwoman Shockley's suggestions. Find places that the money isn't really needed right now and reallocate it toward
Thank you. Unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Nina Casa Calenda, 12 Kingfisher Drive. I have been a Coventry resident for my 26 years. I am a teacher in the district, which has been a dream of mine since I was a little girl. It is the only district that I wanted to pursue my career in due to the excellence that it provided me as a student and the success it has provided me as an educator. I am currently a math interventionist at Hopkins Hill, and I absolutely love my job. My students are successful due to their interventions daily and have the tools to be successful in the classroom with their peers. To hear the cuts that have to be made, including TAs, teachers, interventionists, is unsettling. Despite the future that my job holds in Coventry with the cuts that are going to be made, The effects on my students with larger class sizes and the lack of interventions will impact their education negatively. They deserve to have all the tools and educators that they need to learn and to be successful. As educators, we work as a team to bring success to our students. I want my future children to attend Coventry as I did, but not at the expense of their education by cutting teachers, including special educators and interventionists. I really hope you listen to us tonight and reconsider the budget to benefit our community, especially our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Christopher DeBoer, 14 Nelson Capitol Road, Green, Rhode Island. It's actually Weston Coventry, for those of you that don't know. I just wanted to reiterate what everybody has pretty much said. I agree with a lot of it that was put forward today. One thing I do want to add to it is, as John Kelly said, I'm a product of Coventry. My kids are a product of Coventry. I have two that are officially out of school now, and I have one in middle school currently. I was a very young father. Without the support that the school was able to give us when we had our kids at 17 years old, we wouldn't have gotten through it. I wouldn't have a diploma to show everybody. That is kind of where these positions that are going to be cut, the TAs and the SRPs, are going to really suffer because they give services to people that truly need them. I just wanted to say that we have grown up. We're a part of this community. My wife is currently the PTO president at Weston Coventry Elementary. She also works at Weston Coventry Elementary. I'm a part of the PTO there. So it may affect me completely by her not having a job, which reduces my income, which might result in us leaving Coventry because it's tough. And there's other communities that are more affordable to live in. Also, I want to congratulate the council today because you guys have done fantastic work already. I don't want to discredit that at all. In the first time in a long time, I can say I'm proud of the work that our town council has done for this community. It has been mismanaged so long that I appreciate the work you do put in. Unfortunately, I'm asking you to put in a little bit more work and try to figure out how to allocate more money towards this school. Reject the budget. Go figure out how to support the schools. They're planning on putting condos in down at the end of Harkney Hill Road. How many families are going to move in there? And if you're maxing out these maxing out the school class numbers, where are you going to put them? There are going to be families that want those houses, especially people that do come from Providence that want a more stable environment for their children. So please, again, reject the budget and figure it out. We gave you what you guys wanted. You guys wanted control the budget, to figure it out. We're entrusting you to do that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Matt Jester. My address is 105 Acres of Pine Road. I work at Hopkins Hill. I'm a teacher assistant. I work in SCORE. It's a behavioral program. I just wanted to come on as a taxpayer as well. All of this budget issue, it's year after year. It's a constant thing. And it's always very inconvenient for us SRP members, as our feet are always held to the fire. I think that you guys need to go back to the drawing board and talk with Mr. Cowart about how we can come up with a better plan for us to not always be in this position. This is like 5 years in a row that there's been an issue, whether it's teachers getting laid off, programs being cut, or SRP having their feet held to the fire. I think you guys need more time. I understand the position you guys are in is difficult. Nobody's saying it's easy. But I definitely feel like you guys need to go back to the drawing board. I thank you for your time, and let's figure this out.
Unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Jennifer Ribeiro, 19 Paul Sprague Drive. So I'll keep this very brief. I'm a parent of 2 elementary aged kids. And I just want to say I agree wholeheartedly with everything that has been said tonight. I'm really happy to hear everyone come out and really fight for our community. I have already emailed you all with my feelings in detail, and I thank the members who did reply to that email. I just urge you to make the right decision and vote against the proposed budget. As everyone said, it's only going to hurt our town now and going forward. And I thank you very much for your time and all the work that you do on this committee. Thank you.
Last call, Zoom public comment on docketed items only. Going once, twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. Oh, we have one hand. Unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, just speak loud and clear and state your name and address for the record, please.
Dina Teeple, 61 Old North Road. I wasn't gonna speak, but I think it has to. Sorry, nervous. You can't blame prior administration at schools for problems that we have now. I don't care whatever beef town council has with school or vice versa. The problem is the schools need to be funded in order to run adequately. That is not happening. If you don't have the schools funded adequately, parents are going to send their kids out of district. That's just it. Families are not going to come to move here. And, you know, as Pascula has said I'm sorry if I pronounced her name wrong, Pascula has said, you know, during the reconfiguration, you do not want the state to come in and, you know, look at things. As during the town council meeting last week, you know, they said if the schools continue to keep going deficit after deficit, they're going to step in to deal that with the schools. When that happens, they're also going to be looking at the town. So as Shockley said, the schools fail, the town fails. It's not just a school issue. This is going to be a whole town issue in the big picture of things. So, you know, everyone needs to sit down and figure out, you know, what can be done about this, if anything can be done about this. Because I'm sure there's something, as Shockley has said last time, you know, money with the equipment that was, you know, I guess you guys overcompensated thinking it was going to cost like $115,000 for a backhoe, and it really cost $80,000. That money could now be go towards something else that, you know, could be used for. And there was silence. LeBlanc at one meeting said, you know, you're basing this budget off of assumptions. That's insane. How can you do that for, you know, that it's just crazy. I don't understand how you are going to make that big of a decision based on assumptions with no actual proof going forward. The schools are a big entity of the town. They do have a lot of a lot of people working for it. you can't punish them for that. You know, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I think everybody else pretty much said everything there is. During the reconfiguration, you know, you guys also said to us parents when we were coming to you complaining about it and asking questions, you guys said you don't know why it was happening, but the school committee should listen to us because we are, you know, the constituents. Well, you know, it's time to take your own advice at that. You know, we are the constituents of the town. We're coming to you saying you need to listen to us and, you know, take your own advice in this matter and, you know, really rethink and reconsider looking at this budget for the schools. Thank you.
Unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please. Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please. Tim Chase. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, next. Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please. The Zoom participant labeled Scott. Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please. Scott, unmute yourself, going once, going twice.
Hello.
Hello. Please state your name
Can
and
you hear
address
me
for the
now?
record. Yep.
Scott Guthrie, 31 Maplewood Drive. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
My concern is listening to everybody else that was making comments tonight about what has happened in the past in the town and over the last 10 or 12 years and the mismanagement that's been going on, I think is in the forefront. I was the chair of the last charter review. We tried to address a lot of the issues that faced the town. Most of them got to the voters. A couple of them didn't. I think that this town has been failing since 2010 from charter review changes that were put forth by previous administrations as what was said by other people. And I hope that the town council appoints this new charter commission that is supposed to be ongoing and can keep us aligned with state law and keep us moving forward. Not passing this budget is simply going to cost the taxpayers money because state law is going to intervene. And I fear that we'll be suing each other, the schools and the town, and we need to avoid that. So take a look at the legal standpoint of it. I'm pretty sure the solicitor knows about it. That's my opinion for now and my thoughts for now. Thank you.
Tim Chase, last call. Unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record if you'd like to speak. Last call. Bob, your hand is still raised and you previously spoke. Are you looking to speak again? Yep. Oh, they took their hand down. Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record. Unmute yourself.
Kristen Abood, 45 Woodmist Circle.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm an educator at Blackrock. I'm also a 21-year resident of Coventry. I implore you to please revisit this budget. Please support our schools, our teachers, and our students. Ending our school year with this uncertainty, this instability is not good for anyone. You are our voice. I think you've heard a lot of voices tonight. Please listen to us. Respect our opinions. Respect us as constituents. We need you to do better. We need you to support our schools so we can support our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call, public comment on Zoom. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment is closed. I just want to make it clear, based on some of the comments from public comment, that there's no vote on the budget this evening. There's no vote on the budget Saturday. I think some folks were saying about voting tonight. Tonight and Saturday morning are strictly meant to take feedback from the public, and public hearing from the public. So I just want to make that very clear. So with that, we'll move to public hearing. I'll seek a motion to open public hearing from the council.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc.
Second.
Second by Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, motion passes.
I'll now turn it over to Town Manager Dan Parrillo.
So on April 9th, the town council passed a provisional budget in the following categories. For the municipal budget, it was $120,773,340. School department, $79,795,314. The capital budget was $511,710. And for ARPA, it was $2,685,500. In reviewing this tonight, I noticed there's a Scrivener's error on the document regarding ARPA. The number I just gave you now is the actual number. The number on the document is incorrect. The resolution, I'm sorry. So I do plan on giving you an amended one for Saturday that you guys can vote on, so it's correct. Yeah, so that's going to be the plan. The finance director and I have gone over the budget based on the communication back and forth between the council, the school committee, school administration, the auditor general. We have identified 6 or 7 buckets of money, if you want to call it, that this council, if they so pleased, could move around and give the school department a larger local appropriation. Obviously, it's definitely within your purview, but we just wanted to give the council some areas where we think there could be some movement if you guys want to. So if you want, I can go over those. So we have looked at a number of departments. So right now, because the 22-23 audits are not done, that also pushes back the bond and at least another 3 to 4 months. With that being said, we don't think we're going to be making our first debt service payment on the bond, which is approximately $243,000. So that's one bucket of money if the council decided they could do something with towards the school. Director Savetti also realized that we documented our pilot revenue. There's going to be an additional $50,000 in pilot money coming in. So that is another $50,000 that could be appropriated to the school. Within the school budget, we did appoint $130,000 towards capital. There is enough money in impact fees and within the bond, if that wanted to be reappropriated to local, spend a local appropriation as opposed to capital. And the other big buckets are obviously road paving. There's $500,000 there. There's $190,000 in sanitation for the vehicle that's going to be coming in next year. And there's another $190,000, and there's another $150,000 in sidewalks. I know the superintendent's been doing a lot of cuts within his own budget. And I know we haven't officially come up with a plan regarding the deficit reduction for the 600,000. So if there was an appetite to handle that 600,000 on their end as opposed to the town's end, we could possibly put that $140,000 a year into local appropriation as opposed to a separate line item. So those are just areas that the director and I picked up on that are possibilities that the council could dive into.
Councilor Shockley.
Outside of what's already been allocated, are there any resources available if raising the levy was something that people decided to do?
There's room there. We just went according to what's been passed in the provisional budget. We didn't go above that.
Can you answer that question?
Is there room? Yes.
Can you let me know the amount?
Yeah, so based on what's been presented to the Department of Municipal Finances, probably between 500,000 and 600,000 of additional cap space in the levy. But again, that would be budgeting 100%, assuming you're going to have 99.5% to 100% collections.
Further discussion from the council? Questions? Mr. Savetti, anything to add?
Again, just the comment regarding the pilot revenue. You noticed in the past, pilot revenue's been budgeted at 90,000. Since I've come into this position, we've been trying to figure out what that pilot revenue has been. So not knowing what that number was, we had budgeted 10,000, which was the known portion that we're getting from Kent County Water, between 10 and 12,000 per year. After the provisional budget was presented, we did receive notification and we received a check from the Housing Authority to pay for the other portion of the pilot. So that's why we're proposing changing that revenue budget line item from the 10,000 up to 60,000, the increase of 50,000 of additional funding.
Thank you. Mr. Cowart, did you want to come forward?
I can't answer any questions that you have. I don't have anything.
Oh, okay.
prepared. Yeah.
I didn't know if you had anything additional.
No, other than my public comment, that's all
Okay.
I have. But if you need me, be back up.
Okay. Well, this is public hearing. I know we heard from folks in public comment. I'll open it up for public to come forward for public hearing. Anyone on Zoom? Oh, go ahead. Just state your name and address for the record again.
Trisha Hunt, 526 Camp Westwood Road. What is the difference between public comment and public hearing? Is this me responding
Not
to what I
much.
just heard?
Not much. Public hearing is just a different forum. It's used in specific courses of business for town operations.
I'd just say in response to the monies that seem to be available, I would love to see us use some of those monies. I think that in my very humble, no knowledge experience, I think our roads are not something we want to take away from. Roads and sidewalks and sanitation. I know that my garbage needs to be picked up every day and the sanitation department really needs that funding, but it sounds like some of the other line items would be great to be pulling from. So thank you for finding those funds.
I just want to say I would be very happy to dodge potholes for my kids. So we have a little bit of money there. Let's use it for the children. Thank you. James Pearson, 8 Nicole Lane. Again, hi. I didn't like the answer about the public hearing because that doesn't follow the charter. Please refer to the charter when talking about the public hearing. Per the charter, it is the opportunity for the public to come up and question the town council, town manager, and any department head, including a representative of the school committee, about the budget. It's questions, answers. It's not just comment. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Any members of the public on Zoom? You could have come the short way, Anna. You getting your steps in?
So my question is quite simple. What do we as Coventry, sorry, first of all, Anna Dos Reis, Kutu, 611 Weaver Hill Road. What are we doing as a town to bring more revenue to our towns and our communities? What are we bringing restaurant businesses? What are we trying to do so that we're not constantly on a deficit or always worrying about money? Cuts are important, but revenue is just as important. So are there new incentives, new projects that are going on that we can maybe leverage with by making more money and bringing in revenue? Thank you.
Manager Parrillo. Councilor Shockley, you had your hand up.
So just because of the fact that this is supposed to be an answer part, I think there's a lot of this meeting that is just, and a lot of public comment in our meetings because of the rules are just listening and not really being able to give any feedback in the moment. And I do think it's really important. You know, I came onto the town council about 4 years ago and the schools were the problem then. It's why I fought so hard to make it so that the council could pass the budget, not because we were the smartest people in town, but because we were the people paying the most attention and hopefully looking to do what's in the best interest of the town. I wasn't naive enough at the time to believe that it would always end with my intended outcome. Different councils will have different ideas of what's important for the town to move forward with. But I thought we'd be looking to create a process where we can plan for cuts. So whether they're people or items in an agenda, I didn't want them to be things we slash at the last minute, like we've done year after year after year. But instead, we could start planning towards that and really looking at, you know, what cuts could happen. And in the future, like some other towns near us, be able to plan for either lower increases or level budgets for that year. So I didn't expect that we'd start excluding the school committee from meetings after doing that. And I didn't think we'd so quickly have the school and their budget on the line again. You know, a large part of why I wanted to have the town council approve the budget is because the more we do this, the more people are leaving. And, you know, I know my son wants to stay. So, you know, there's a few things that I learned tonight from you guys and a few things that I think I had as my own takeaways. So, you know, I can say, I don't know the viability or appropriateness of a school reconfiguration project. I don't work for schools. I know that Don Cowart had been talking about it for months beforehand, but I only know that because I was on the school building committee. And a large part of what we wanted to do was so that we'd get those school age bands together. That's all I know. I don't know what staff can be considered extraneous that we shouldn't have, or maybe just don't need that level of. I don't know the number or the cost of unfunded mandates for school, but I do know that President Lima, I don't know if it was taped today, but she was on the radio talking about unfunded mandates for the town and how we can't plan for those. We get these things we have to do, and then we have to find the money. What we have to cut out in order to do it is up to us. I don't know what's discussed in leadership meetings between the town and the school. I'm not invited. But there are things that from tonight or from before I do know. So tonight I can say I know that our unelected leadership seems ready to move forward together. I do know that the town has made decisions to fund certain town programs, and then we met those needs in this budget. And when President Lima mentioned things last week that she didn't want to cut, none of those things were on the list of what I had proposed as possible remedies to providing more funds to the school. I know, and this has been voiced as a concern by the Auditor General, that the school's already in a deficit, and this will only grow that. I know that we're bonding for what we should be budgeting for. So instead of bonding for growth, we're bonding for things that we never bothered to budget for in the past, and we're fixing things, which is unfortunate when we're hearing these other towns are building new schools and we don't have the bonding capacity. So even if all 5 people on this town council had wanted to build a brand new school, we didn't have the bonding capacity because we bond for things like trucks and gyms and excuse me, things that we should have over the years been fixing. You know, these things with our sewer are things that we probably noticed years ago, but no one had the money to fix it. So they just tried to put a Band-Aid on it like we do with so many other things. I know that we pay for every kid who goes to an alternative public school. And as much as I want roads, I'd like to see some buses driving down them. And I know that the people who have moved into my neighborhood since I moved here 8 years ago, they either have small children or they moved here because their children and grandchildren live in this town. I think Ms. Dos Reis Kutu said earlier, this is not a retirement community. People live here and retire, but they don't move here to retire. So when I sell my house, it's most likely not going to be to an elderly couple. You know, it's nice to see people come in tonight and not look to fight with the town council, but look to really just say, these are the concerns I have for my community. And while in my mind, I might be able to live without a town that picks up my garbage or has a senior center, I can't live in a town that doesn't have a school. So I really am hoping that we can work together. Like I said, I know cuts have to be made, and I know in the future more will, but I'd like to see them not being made because we're sending our money to other towns. And I'd like to see them planned. Like, I think in the town budget this year, we really got to plan. We got to make decisions and stick to those commitments. And I think we can still do that and move forward so that the school can start having a more level ground as well. So I heard everything you guys said, and I really do agree that it makes no sense that the town has had to cut its way down and now we're trying to grow, and that the school hasn't had to do the same thing all these years in our budget cycle. So I really appreciate the town council listening tonight to all of your feedback, and I'm hoping that we can move forward with a better budget.
Vice President LeBlanc.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I really appreciate the feedback. That's the whole point of tonight, Saturday, and hopefully a couple more. My first proposal that I would like for the council to discuss, if they're open to it, is moving that $240,000 school bond payment out of that line and into CIP, specifically earmarked for the school and the school only. My second proposal that we can all discuss would be moving that $50,000 related to the pilot. I think the pilot fees was what was causing this surplus. Moving that also to CIP, specifically earmarked for the schools and the schools only. And then the third proposal that I'm open to would be having a workshop with the schools and the parents if the council is so open. Those are the three proposals I would like to start with.
Councilmember Shockley.
Can you just repeat, you want it to go to the CIP?
Yes, CIP, but it's specifically earmarked for the schools. We've done that in the past.
But just for capital, or did I get the?
So my understanding is that the school has items in their budget. Again, the school committee is responsible for the budget, not us. But they have items in that budget that they've currently asked for. Even if we gave them the 225, that would be for capital improvements to their buildings. Instead of using the funds that are currently in that budget, if we were to pass the 225, they would be able to use these funds in CIP, and then they could allocate the funds in their current budget to other things. So it frees up another, if we did the 240 plus the 50, that would be 290. Again, it's just a start, Kim, but at least I'm trying.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that joint meeting would be really important there, just so we can see what they could cut for capital in order to put this in. I do think we're going to have to start actually having the base budget get funded moving forward. But Mr. Blank, I very much appreciate your moving forward with some ideas.
Councilwoman Capaldi.
You know, being a part of this council for a couple of weeks now, I've seen a lot, I've learned a lot. I think people just need to work together better. and on both sides. We got to work hard. There's give and take on both sides that have to work to get this thing to move forward. Some of the emails that I've gotten were very angry people at me who has never been even a part of this budget season. And I was amazed on the anger that was coming from people, very pro getting more money. I have a daughter in the school district. Class of 85. I know a lot of people in this audience outside of the town. I played basketball with you. There's give and take. Everybody wants something. Everybody needs something. And if you take it away from somebody, a department, a line item, they will have less money as well. I do believe that children are our future. And I do believe that we have to find a better way to help the school. And I agree with what Councilman LeBlanc. It's a start. You're not going to get everything that you need just because you ask for it. It doesn't work that way. That's life. But if we could help a little bit more, I think that's what we should do. So we have to find a compromise. Thank you.
Councilman Pasqua.
I want to thank Vice President LeBlanc for those suggestions there, and actually Town Manager Parrillo as well. Good suggestions. Doesn't really have an impact on the overall budget because we found this money, and it puts it in CIP and allows the schools to free up some money on that side to be able to disperse it how they need. I'd like to get some feedback from the finance director though on the appropriation that we were considering, and then this and his opinion on basically where we stand on this, what we should do.
Again, we obviously we're tied to the tax levy, right? Most we can go up 4% by the state law. What we had presented that went into the advertisement in this budget, we're proposing a residential rate of 15.785, commercial of 21.55, which represented around a 3.2% increase is what it would be. So there is still some room. That's where I mentioned to Councilwoman Shockley that you still have room to get up to that 4%. It's really the appetite of this council. And, I think this town budgets very aggressively as far as from a collection rate. My 30+ years experience working with municipalities, you generally see, real estate being budgeted at maybe a 98% collection rate. Then you have your tangibles down at low 90s. When we had motor vehicles, that was in the 80s. So you normally ended up with a average collection rate, maybe around 97%. This community budget's at 99.5%. So there's not a lot of room for movement, which is why, our intention would be when this budget's going to get voted on, or once it is approved, and then we come forward with the tax rate range, we do have that range. We say no less than what's in the budget, no more. That gives us a little additional cushion. So again, I think increasing the levy here, going up to the maximum and saying that we're going to budget it, an extra 700,000 on top of what we already have here, I think it would be too aggressive. But there is some room there. I think as the town manager mentioned, some of those line items we presented or we talked about, this council, since I've come on board, and I think town manager as well, we've heard this town council speak and try to get where we're getting to, where we're funding road paving, we're funding sidewalks. We're doing a lot of things so that you don't have the peaks and valleys within your budget. The 190,000 that we proposed in this budget for the sanitation vehicles. yes, we don't expect those new vehicles to come in for another year or so. So could we push off that, really that 190, we're looking to set that money into a capital lease fund so that we could start getting on the process of, having the funds available every year to fund it over a 6-year period rather than right now. Right, our sanitation vehicles are being financed over 20 years and they're on their way out after 8 years. So just trying to get more responsible of a budget. But I think it's obviously the choice of this council. I know folks mentioned tonight that earlier the council had proposed giving $1 million to the school. I just want to clarify that was my proposal when we were asked to put together a 3-year projection. School committee did a 3-year projection. Town council, through the charter, I was required to put together a 3-year projection. So that was just my projection and saying, if we budgeted $1 million additional for the school over each year for the next 3 years, where we would be. So that wasn't something that the council voted on, again, just for the public's clarity. But even with that proposal, I don't have the right in front of me, but when we were proposing the $1 million annually for the next 3 years, I think we still had deficit projections on the school side ranging from $3 to $5 million. So even giving them that extra $1 million, I agree cuts have to be made on the school department side. We have to work together. So I think we could find ways to possibly get up to that $1 million number without detrimentally affecting the town's budget. Yes, we're going to have to push off some of the things that I think this council is looking forward to doing and trying to get on that right path. But clearly the school committee is still going to have to make some significant cuts where they came forward looking for $2 million just from the town appropriation. If we were able to get them up to the $1 million, which I believe in our meetings, superintendent indicated they could survive with that $1 million. They'd still be looking to make cuts on that end, but that's what I have at this point.
Manager Parrillo.
I think the concern too is we definitely need to have some sort of joint meeting with the school department to address the deficit. So it's 600,000 in 22. Last year there were plus 35,000. Right now it's 822,000 for fiscal 24. So it's something the Auditor General has also instructed us is to come up with a plan on how that's going to be addressed, whether that's cuts on the school side, whether that's money from the town side. That has to be mutually agreed upon. I think they need to have an idea of how they want to handle it. We need to submit a plan that's approved by the council and submitted to the Auditor General. So when we're talking about putting money in this area and that area, we also have to understand that $1.3 million deficit needs to be addressed per the Auditor General.
Mr. Cowart. Yep.
A few questions. Bob, how much of what is in the provisional, what's the total amount increase in the provisional budget that the town manager put forward and was approved? All in, like how much was it townwide? It was 3 million. You're looking at it was a 3.87. So we're looking at a $4.1 million increase from last year to this year, based on what, correct. And of that, almost of that $4 million, currently 225,000 is allocated to the schools, with 75% of that being the cell phone tower money. Well, tell me why. Yep. Okay, so
Which is part of that $4 million
yeah,
increase.
so take state aid out, just the local allocation then.
Then your budget's only up about $3 million.
All right, $3 million. So of the $3 million, 225,000 was allocated to the schools for operations.
For operations, but another 140,000 for deficit reduction.
Correct.
I don't think you can keep indicating just how much for operations and ignoring all the other components.
But here's-
It's all
here's-
part of the number. If you're gonna look at the total increase, you have to factor in that total increase, how much throughout that's going to education. So
Right.
I believe you also have to include what's being allocated for the additional debt service
Mhm.
projection, what's being allocated for the additional capital.
Yeah, so follow my thinking here. The reason why I asked you those questions, and I appreciate the answers, is that the maintenance of effort requirement, which requires the town to fund the schools at a minimum at the level that they were funded the prior year. When we don't put appropriate funding from the local, from the town in that local operating allocation line, it doesn't build the base for the maintenance of effort going forward. So if you earmark money to the CIP or you earmark money towards other things that don't get put in the allocation line, what ends up happening is the maintenance of effort stays flat. All those other sub-funds that have funding in them, whether it's $200,000 from ARPA money to pay for a truck, or $425,000 from ARPA money to pay for pumping and hauling, or $150 for debt reduction, or all these other funds that support schools, which I am not disagreeing with. We need those things, and I'm appreciative of those things. My problem from the position of a superintendent is they don't hit operations. And when operations stays flat, but everything else goes up, I can't then lean against those other funds because those funds are not in the maintenance of effort anymore. And so what ends up happening is, and town councils do this and city councils do this, they do it in the community I live in as well, is everybody works really hard to keep the money out of maintenance of effort because they don't want to be responsible for funding large amounts every single year because the law requires you have to give the same amount of money. So if you were to move $225,000 or $240,000 from the bond payment, I would want it to go into our allocation so that at least we would get the maintenance of effort requirement out of that so that the next year that's built into our budget. Because I think when the Auditor General talks about structural deficits, I think what the Auditor General is referring to is the fact that what is in operations is not increasing at a percent rate equal or even close to equal to what everything else is increasing at.
Yeah, I would just respond. That's not my proposal. That
No.
was a proposal by the vice
No,
president.
I asked you the questions, but that's my position as superintendent. Whatever funds get potentially reallocated, and I'll be very grateful for whatever we can get. But I think you have to know that I am looking for those things to go into our local allocation for operations. If they get earmarked in other places, the reality is next year they can fall off the paper, and then we're still looking at a small number for maintenance of effort.
Right.
Conceptually.
I
Thank
agree.
you. That's better than being incorrect.
Is that all?
I think so. I might try to come back up again if you let me.
Yep, I was just waiting to see
Yep.
if he was finished. Vice President LeBlanc.
Just to follow up on that, certainly could do the 290 in the budget, in the maintenance of effort, but then ask that the school pays for the 146 deficit plan for the next 5 years as well. I mean, so we're eating the 146 on our side for the next, I think, 5-6 years. So we could do something like that too, and then have the letter go to the Auditor General that the school department is going to be paying the deficit.
Would the 140
So-
be in the maintenance of effort, or would it be in a separate account line?
All I'm saying is very similar to what you're saying,
Mhm.
right? If we're gonna put all of the school's expenses in the school department, which is what you're asking,
Mhm.
all right? I could propose the 290 go in maintenance of effort, but then also say that I think the town council should think that the school should come up with their deficit reduction plan and it should be in the school's budget. But what I'm saying is, my proposal was to put the 290 in CIP and the town also pay the 146
Mhm.
for the next 5-6 years.
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's $700,000
Yep.
that we're not putting as an expense on the school side, right? And then I know what you're saying about the maintenance of effort, but at the end of the day, Mr. Coward, this council, the last, I think, 2 years has given the school millions of dollars on top of, and if we were to be required to put that into maintenance of effort, we would go bankrupt.
Correct.
We would
but
go bankrupt as a town.
I understand your position, I guess, and I'm not looking to argue. I'm just saying we're doing the exact opposite. We're keeping everything out of maintenance of effort, which keeps us so close to flat that we have nothing to build off of. So when everything goes up, the base is not anywhere close to where everything else is moving up. And so that's my concern.
But at the end of the day, we are, as a town, giving the school close to what, $80 million when it comes to local appropriation and state aid? $80 million. I mean, I get it. I get it. It happens in all municipalities,
Mhm.
but you are already getting the majority of our local appropriation. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've heard this consistent messaging of we're gonna live within our means, and I've never seen it. And I would love to work together, which is one of my proposals was, sure, let's have a
Yep.
workshop. And
Yep.
it keeps
Yep.
getting thrown in our face that in the council's face that we stopped certain meetings. Ms. Shockley actually said it again tonight. There's meetings happening behind closed doors that I'm not even a part of. The whole reason why President Lima and I suggested that we stop those behind closed door meetings and have them is so that not only are all council members present, but the town can actually listen to those conversations. That was the whole point.
But
It wasn't that we wanted to stop the meetings. We said, let's have open workshops.
But
And
we
again,
haven't
I
had open
proposed it.
workshops
Again,
because
I
the town
listened and I
hasn't
proposed it.
invited the schools to join those workshops. We're setting agendas separate from your agenda and taking attendance in a hallway to come into to open a meeting, to sit here so that we don't have an open meetings violation because we have a quorum of school committee members. We're not sitting up there that we have in the past. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but to say we want to open those meetings up to the community and then not post it as a joint meeting and force us to try to get a Zoom link the hour before it gets posted to the Secretary of State so we can post the same meeting and then open it in a hallway doesn't seem or feel like that's what the intent was. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying we haven't had a single joint meeting since December, where in prior years, there were joint meetings. This would have been a joint meeting. The meeting on Saturday would have been a joint meeting. The meeting that we had on the 9th would have been a joint meeting. They weren't posted that way. And when I asked, we said there was no interest in posting it that way.
And just for the record, I
Excuse me,
also asked.
No,
going to speak.
no, Councilwoman Shockley, you
Hillary.
did not get to speak over me. We're having a respectful
hadn't
dialogue.
spoken, I
The
usually
floor
would
is not
speak over
yours. You're not going to yell over me. You've
I'm
done it
not
this whole
actually
thing.
yelling. I
I'm
believe I'm
asking,
speaking
I'm
in a regular
respectfully
tone
asking
of
you to wait your
voice.
turn to speak. I'm respectfully asking you
And
to wait
with
your
all
turn to
due
speak.
respect, I'm going to tell you
respectfully
that
asking you
I
to
also
wait
asked for that
your
joint
turn
meeting
to
and was
speak.
told no.
I'm asking you to wait your turn to speak. The floor was still yours. Mr. Cowart interrupted you, and I'm giving the floor back to you.
All I'm saying is part of my proposal before this discussion was I said the council should have a workshop with the school committee and so parents could come in front of it. So
Appreciate that.
before this conversation, I had already suggested.
And I appreciate that. And I don't want you to feel I don't. I do. I'll sit.
You were next.
Ann Dixon, 141 Perry Hill Road. This is a point for clarification that I would like to have. Since the council approved a provisional budget, what is the next step? Is there going to be a vote by the council on the provisional budget as it was originally proposed, which we have been discussing this evening? Or is there going to be a modified budget based on some suggestions that have been proposed and may continue to be developed? And that will be the first official vote. So I'm not sure, based on our charter, what's the first official vote, because that's where the supermajority vote comes in or not. And then if that vote fails, then there'd be another proposal by the manager, there'd be a second vote. And if that fails, then it would go to the public. So what is the first official vote and what is it on? The first provisional budget or something else?
So the council already passed the provisional budget. That's what we're discussing right now in the public forum.
Okay.
The 7th is going to be the final budget that has to pass by supermajority on the 7th. If it doesn't pass by supermajority on the 7th, then I have to propose a second budget. The council has to vote on that one. I think that's May 14th that's scheduled for. If that doesn't pass by supermajority, then it goes to the voters to decide in between those two budgets.
So you're saying that on the 7th, they're going to be voting on the provisional budget, not any other modifications that may or may not be made?
Yes, they can modify it from now until the 7th. When the 7th, the first is the final vote. If it's not by supermajority, again, then I have to propose a second budget for the 14th. They vote on that. If that's not passed by supermajority, then it goes to the voters to decide which one of the two they prefer.
I understand that process because that was part of the charter changes, but I was just trying to understand what the vote is, which budget they're going to be looking at. And that is your original provisional budget. Is that right, on the 7th?
So I proposed the manager's budget already. That's been
Right.
amended by the provisional budget.
Right.
And over the next 2 days or next 2 meetings, there's going to be public input. And then on the 7th is the final budget vote They can make any final amendments they would like and then pass a final budget.
So on the 7th, they can make amendments to the provisional budget that you are going to
Yes.
be proposing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Ms. Anzalone.
Amy Anzalone, 11 Orchid Trail. I just have a couple of questions, follow-ups, Mr. LeBlanc, if you don't mind. The first one is you talked about giving millions to the schools over the past couple of years. Could you please just give me a quick rundown? I'm not sure what the millions are.
I'm pretty sure there's been pumping costs. Bob, how much are the pumping costs costing us on a weekly basis that the town is paying for?
Right now, it's $1,750 per day. I think we're about $500,000 in pumping costs.
I'm sorry, Mr. Savetti, have you paid those costs as of yet?
Currently, it's part of the proposal to utilize
Right.
ARPA funding to pay those.
But currently, right now, the school department, I'm just figuring out, I'm just trying to figure out what the millions are. So I just want to know that, has the town paid for those pumping costs?
Not at this
No,
point.
okay, I'm sorry, can you give me other millions?
There was a due fund that was over $2 million that we settled after a 10-year dispute with the school. And that was given about a year and a half ago. I think it was 2.2 million.
Mr. Cowart would speak to that so I can understand the due to from. I believe you owed that to us. So I just want to make.
It was in dispute for about 10 years.
I understand, but.
And this council settled it. And it
I
was
understand.
$2.2 million.
I understand, but that was money that was owed to the schools. And again,
Potentially.
I understand. I'm not, honestly, I'm being, when you make a comment
Fine.
like that as a resident, I just want to know
give it
what
to
the
me.
millions are.
I understand.
Okay,
And
thank
then
you.
we also suggested purchasing a pump truck.
Okay,
And how
so
much was that? 200,000?
have you bought that pump truck?
Yes.
You have, and you've already paid that out. So 200,000.
And that's going to offset the cost that the school's currently paying and that the town will be paying, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. And the other
That's
money,
hundreds of thousands of
other
dollars
than
in
the,
savings.
I'm just trying to get to the millions.
I just said 2.2 million. And then pumping costs, if we didn't buy the pumping truck that the town did, how much would the school potentially have to pay if we didn't pick it up in our budget?
Ballpark 600 to 700,000.
600 to 700,000. So, I mean.
I understand, but I just, you used the phrase, Mr. LeBlanc,
Yeah.
that you've given the school millions. And I'm just trying to make sure I clarify that, where the millions have come from. And then the second piece that I just wanted to bring up, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When we talk about a structural deficit, I'm going to give you a very small one that I certainly appreciate that you gave us last year to help fund a state mandate for curriculum materials. You gave us $160,000 to fund curriculum materials that are required by a state mandate by a certain year. And I appreciate that because it did help for us to purchase the curriculum materials for this year at the middle school, which were $90,000 and a plethora of other things. And I certainly appreciate that. But now that's not built into our budget, and we still have to fund the curriculum materials for elementary K through 5 and the high school 9 through 12. And right now the law states that we need to do that by September of 2025. Now it is in the Senate at the state for that to be pushed for one more year till September of 2026. But we need that time because that is not something someone's going to hand us right now. And a 3-year contract for the middle school is $100,000, and that's not including replacing the materials. So I know that sounds like $100,000. You gave us $160,000, and we used it very, very importantly. But if we had millions that were coming to us to operate the schools, I can tell you I would know about them because I would know what we needed to purchase.
So we could stop providing ARPA funds and have the school have to. We had asked for one-time costs last year.
I understand.
And they were one-time costs that we had asked Mr. Cowart.
And I said I appreciate that 100%.
One-time cost, and a one-time cost was defined as a cost that wasn't going to happen annually. It sounds like what
I
you're telling
understand.
me is now that it's an annual cost. So we were told from the superintendent that it was a one-time cost that was going to be over 5 years.
It's
okay?
a one-time cost for 3 years for that particular curriculum material. But in 3 years, we have to renew that. Plus we have other things that are in our budget that have to be built in, but I couldn't put them in the curriculum lines this year because we were cutting so much. So I only bring this forward is when you talk about taking money from other projects, which again, we would certainly accept and appreciate and just put them on as not part of our base budget. It's going to continue. And again, as somebody who's worked here for 36 years, I've seen it every year. is going to continue to keep us underfunded. My final question, I apologize for taking the time, but I really do respect the amount of work that you all have to do too. How many times are you aware of that the school has ended their year in a deficit outside right now of the year 2022? How many years are you aware that the school has not balanced their budget at the end of the year outside of the year of 2022? Where we had a deficit, where we did not balance our budget at the end of the year.
No, I mean, Chris would probably have that answer, but I know you used 1 year there was use of ESSER funds and another year was fund balance in order to get to the number, which is in addition.
And how many times have we asked the town to help us because we're in a deficit that you're aware of outside of the year of 2022? None.
I can't speak for that more than the last year.
Okay, so what I don't want to happen is for us to be continued to be portrayed as being inept and not careful with our budget. Because again, as a person who has been around for a really long time, we fought about the same things years after year. And I'm just saying, these are good people that work for the best of their schools. And I just want you to respect that too. Thank you.
Nope, there's someone else.
Hi, Renee Smith, 3 Wildflower Drive. I don't know how to say this, and I'm trying not to be disrespectful, but even just this exchange is showing you how disconnected you all are to each other. This should be together. This should be something that you work out together and not argue back and forth where, I'll say this, where the school committee doesn't feel like they have to kiss your butts to get the money that they want. Another thing that I was thinking, so I've been here since 2008. We know that it didn't work, right, to have the whole community come in and try to vote where they were voting on every single line item for the budget. This is the second try where we're seeing that having the town own all of the money and for the school to beg for the money every year to run the school department might not be working. And I guess my question is, what's a third option? Where maybe you both have to beg for the money from somebody. I don't know. But what are other towns doing if we can't get this to work?
So I can answer that question. Someone that did the research on all 39 cities and towns and how they adopt their budgets. The towns that still have a referendum, all-day referendum to vote on their budgets, their population tends to skew towards about 8,000 to 15,000 people. I also did the research over the last, I believe it was 8 to 9 years in Coventry. We have just under 36,000 people, so about 26,000 registered voters. On average, at those all-day referendums, we were getting anywhere between 2,500 and 2,600 people. So 1% of the town was making the decision.
Right.
So that's another piece I'd like to highlight. We're talking about one community this evening. We didn't get to this place on the town side and the school side overnight. This came from nearly half a dozen times in the last 8 years of this community either not showing up or voting down budgets and level funding.
Right.
So I don't know that this is all about changing when we don't get the outcome, changing the rules.
I'm not saying that.
No. I want us to reflect on how we got here and understand that we can't be looking to take a bite of the entire apple all in one go around. And I would agree with Councilmember Shockley that there needs to be some kind of plan to incrementally work our way back up. We can't just be expected to take a huge bite at the apple and fix what's been arguably decades of underfunding for town services. We're no longer this little bumpkin community of 10,000, 11,000 people. We're the 8th largest municipality in the state of Rhode Island. People don't tend to realize that. And again, we're talking about one community, and this community did not show up when you know how, as someone who have been on this council since 2021, do you know how devastating it is to put in the time that we put in as volunteers, the hours we sit over this budget, all for it to be voted down in one day?
Oh, I used to go to those till 11, 12 o'clock
I'm
at
talking
night.
about now just even showing up to vote. Just not even the financial town meeting piece. Just the hours that people who sit up here and people who sit on the school committee put in, all for somebody to say, I don't feel like my taxes should go up, and just show up and say no. And a lot of the time, it's folks whose taxes are frozen. It doesn't matter to them, which was wild to me. So I hear you. I really do. I just want us to realize we didn't get here overnight, and we're not gonna get out of this mess overnight either. So I hear you. I understand that the first inclination may be to look at the process, but there needs to be strategic planning. We cannot continue to just try and take and eliminate the entire mess all in one swoop.
I agree. So we need to stop this back and forth of, I gave this to you, you should be thankful and you should be happy with what we gave you. I think we need to just sit together and say, this is what we have. Let's break this down and figure this out. And in addition to you talking about the large amount of people in this district, this is the largest town in the whole state. I mean, if you look at land-wise and you said population-wise as well. So that means that the school is going to be the largest and need the largest number of staff to support that large amount. I grew up in a small town with 2 elementary schools, and my school it's now broken up to 2, but I was in middle school and high school was all together in one. So there needs to be consideration of 5 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. That's a lot of people. So I again, this last exchange, I wasn't going to get up here and talk and ask a question again, but this last exchange really got me that the attitude is, this is what we gave you. You should be thankful and try to beg for more. We'll see. So that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Shockley.
Thank you. I think if we could possibly have Saturday, if we have time to do a joint meeting, make Saturday a joint meeting. I'd really like, if not, I'd like to change it to Sunday. Because I'd really like to discuss with the school what is within their budget. You know, we talk a lot about money being given, and I couldn't be more grateful right now that we had ARPA funds. And if we end up using those funds to help pay for this, it's keeping the high school open, I'd have to assume. And it's really just, are we taking money out of our left pocket or our right pocket? It's all money that would have to be spent at some point, and we'd just see the school in a larger and larger deficit if we didn't have the ARPA funds. We happen to have available funds for it, which I think is an extremely lucky thing, and it never would have happened at any other time in history. Otherwise, like I said, all this money we're talking about for pumping this out, it would have had to have been done anyway. And we would have just been seeing deficits go deeper and deeper and deeper. So we find ourselves in a budgetary crisis right now. Also, I couldn't agree with you more that this has been years in the making. We've created budgets that the people who were managing the town thought were good, appropriate budgets, as high as they felt comfortable making them with the voters voting on them. They've been voted down, and then we've done what the school is doing this year, and it's a last minute slash. Making it so the town nor the school has to do that anymore, I think is what we're working towards. And making it so that their overall budget can continue to maintain the level of funding the school needs. Now, I don't think everyone agrees on what is necessary for the school's needs. I don't know how we can work to have the school change those things over time if everyone agrees that things should be cut. But I don't know that. I don't think anyone up here knows what the school should be cutting. And I do think when we talk about money that, honestly, I think the council did agree we owed the school that $2 million. And I think a lot of this outside money it doesn't go to the budget. So even though we're paying it, and I think it's generous and it's great that we can. If I say I can't pay my bills and you say, but I bought you a car, well, I still can't pay my bills. And that's the budget. The budget isn't the septic tank. The budget, unfortunately, at this moment, isn't even the deficit. And if we don't increase, if I understand it correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't increase what we give year over year towards the budget, it's just going to see an increase to the deficit. That's what makes it a structural deficit, I believe. So I don't want to say what we give and what we don't give. I want to see how we get people to a baseline. And I think we can get the town there with giving more to the school. And I guess I'm just wondering, what I asked last time is, what's our best case scenario outcome for this budget? And even for giving money outside the budget to other line items. And the same way we did with the teacher contract, what's the worst case scenario? Because I think we have to plan towards that. I reached out to the Auditor General and the Office of Municipal Finance after we did this budget, the provisional budget, because I felt that as a fiduciary, we weren't doing what the town taxpayers were doing, which is voting based on a lack of understanding. We're purposely putting forward a budget that I don't see working after this year. So I felt as a fiduciary, I should reach out to experts on the subject matter. And I didn't reach out for town opinion input because I wanted to talk to somebody who knew what they were talking about. And I feel that the Auditor General feels this is a bad budget. And he's been working with us a lot on the fact that our audits aren't done. And I think he is an expert on town budgets, and we should factor that into what we do. So once again, if this weekend we could have a joint meeting so we can actually have these conversations and not put proposals out that maybe we're not really prepared to vote on until we can really talk about them, would be the best thing.
Kelly Renikis, President of Coventry Teachers Alliance, 3 Hazel Street. Just a couple of observations. I think every city and town, first I'm going to agree with Ms. Lima that I had the same discussions, I think, with you about the voter turnout. It was deplorable. It's still deplorable. I don't care whether it's 30% that go to school, 70% that don't, 25% are frozen, 20% are on disability. It doesn't matter. It's a town. I think, as Mr. Blank said, it's just a clear-cut fact. I don't care what city or town that you're in. The schools have the largest employees. So the police department, somebody said that will yell at me if I'm wrong. I think there's 47 employees. 47. So that budget is very small. They should get raises. They should get their police cars. We should be safe. It is what it is. But when you have a school department that has 1,000 employees, it's obviously going to be a bigger piece of the budget. And the only thing that I'll say, Mr. Blank, is that I truly acknowledge what you're saying is accurate and correct. Roughly, I'm going to say 75, 76% of the budget is the schools. But if that's the case, when you receive an allocation from the taxpayer, that means if you're going to keep everything equal and try to bring everybody's base up, that 75% or 76% of that allocation should go to schools because that's the portion of the budget, and the other 14% should go to the town. What's happening now is there's a 3.5, roughly, please, I'm a social studies teacher, don't hit me, Mr. Savetti, roughly a $3.5 million increase. And of that, you're giving $225,000. So if I do quick dummy math, because I am a dummy in math, you're giving 90% of the allocation to the towns when you're claiming that roughly 75, 76% is the schools. So it's just so unbalanced that it's that structural deficit. And I'm not saying that you should be giving that full 80 to the schools and not to the town, because that's your job. But what I'm saying is it comes off so contentious, and people that are your voting public don't understand it because we make all these general statements. But if that is true, if you want to keep, if the budgets are the way they are, you can't look over the past decade and say that the average increase to schools on new monies coming in has literally been about 1.25%, where the average increase to town has been over 7%. It totally doesn't wash when this is 80% of the budget and this is 20%. So I just ask that when you're having conversations, just be real with them. And again, even if you took the monies, and again, I understand well the difference between CIP and what's going on the budget and what has to be paid the year after. The schools said they needed $3.8 million. You gave them roughly 250. Let's not argue about the pennies. But even if you increase that 250,000 by the monies that you said to say another 600,000, it's still less than $1 million of the 3.8 they need. So that structural deficit not only is not going away, it's compounding. And I think what the town did is good for the past 7 years, has increased the town side to try to get away from that structural deficit. The difference is, I watch these meetings all the time from my city and yours. When you need a truck, you buy it. There's a dump truck here, there's a plow truck here, there's a hawk hawk here and a chick chick there. When you guys need something, you're the town, you can generate revenue, you can purchase it. You have the ARPA funds, you have these funds, you have those funds. When the school needs something, it can't. Their sewer failed. That's the school's fault. It's actually going to help you quicker now connect a sewer line to Reservoir Ave and try to get some stuff done. But when buildings fail, they're town buildings, whether God forbid this roof crashed in, or the high school roof crashes in, or the senior center roof crashes in, or the police station roof crashes in. You can't say, I'm going to put that on the school's budget, but I'll never put it on the police budget when I buy a new car for them, or a new dump truck for the DPW. So I just ask that you look at things equitable. When you write budgets, if you're doing a pension deficit, municipal has a pension, police have a pension, SRP has a pension, that it should be on everyone's budget, not just one. So when you're increasing budgets, please do so equitably. I think you've done a good job with the town of trying to build that base. But now you need to do it to the schools because you haven't built that base. Over the past decade, 1.25% increase. It's not building that base. Thanks.
Trisha Hunt, 526 Camp Westwood Road. I have questions because this is still back and forth, right? So what I have loved most about this town council since I've moved here and started really paying attention in the last 4 years is how much research you do before making decisions and what great forward planning you've had for the town side. And when questions are being thrown out about the budget of the school and not really knowing what their line items look like or what's available necessity or available want, I'm just wondering if the same due diligence isn't happening for the school, where administration put forward an incredibly detailed budget this year. Not only was it beautiful with QR codes and amazing details and narratives and pictures, but there was really solid financial information, as was our town manager's budget. It's what helped me to really understand what are the things that are not negotiable. They have to have these things. So yes, I understand $80 million. I can't even fathom that much money. But how much of that, obviously it's not the whole 80 million, but how much of that are they have no control over? And are you aware of those things? Are those conversations that have been had in the past that I just haven't been privy to? Or is this you want to come to the table and look at this budget with having never really looked at it? Like, has the school's budget been looked at by the town council?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. If you have given millions, which I think it sounds like there has been millions at some point over a length of time, I would just continue to argue that those millions were necessities based on lack of funding that caused those deficits to occur unexpectedly. And those are just one-time monies. That is not part of their operational budget. Yes, that's a lot of money we've potentially will be giving to the septic and the trucks and roofs and air conditioners. And it's amazing that we've had ARPA funds for that, but it's just a clear signal that they do not have enough in their operational budgets. So I hope that we're not taking what they needed and then use it's the perfect example of what you said. If you give someone a car, that doesn't mean that they can now pay all their bills. They just now have a brand new car. Great. So we have to really keep thinking about where monies can be moved. I don't see a ton being scrimped and saved from other areas. My other last question is just think it was 2 meetings ago, Councilwoman Shockley, you had mentioned some snow removal money. Am I speaking accurately about that?
It was a small amount.
It was
and
a small amount,
Yeah,
okay.
it was about $10,000. I think that we were just putting in additional to our budget this year.
But I
than
think
what we had for-
$10,000 to the school, it's sad that we're like scrimping and like begging, but I think there's $10,000. There is a way that we can move some funds and make it a part of the school's operational budget so that this deficit doesn't exist in such a large capacity. Thank you.
Vice President Blank.
Town manager, can you just tell the public what the total ask was of all departments at the beginning of the budget?
Now you're gonna make me remember this. I think it was 7 million, Director Savetti. Is that the ask?
I think
7 and 8 million was the entire ask, I believe.
Right. So my point of asking that question is we've now cut it down to what?
3,
Yeah, total is just about 4 million.
4 million altogether.
So
So-
reduced it almost.
So it's not just,
45%.
my point is it's not just the school department that's
No.
making cuts. It's
Correct.
every single department that we have in town
Yes.
is making cuts. And then a comment was made that there's expenses on the school side that they don't have any control of. And where I have a little pause there is the council is only allowed to give a certain amount to the schools, and then they're responsible for the actual expenses that they approve during the year. The council is not. The one expense that comes to mind that the council is involved in is the ratification of the teacher contract. But it's that, and then this budget vote where we give the local appropriation, but the individual line items, we are not allowed to tell them how to spend that money. So they are responsible for all of their expenses. So I just wanted to clarify that too.
John Kelly, 39 Remington Farm Drive. I'm sorry, the department's asked for approximately $7 million.
Ballpark.
7.8 million, and it was cut down to 4. So very quickly off the top of my head, just between 50 and 55%. You gave them 50 to 55% of what they asked for. Schools asked for. That's everybody. Town, school.
I think I think the town got about 65% of their ask, if I'm not mistaken. The town got about 65% of their ask, if I'm not mistaken.
So if the school asked for 3.8, Tricia, don't judge me, I'm sorry. That means
They
that
asked for 2. The school asked for 2 million.
school asked for 2 million,
2 million.
and they were granted,
226,000.
so 65% for the other departments, just under 10% for the school. That's not equitable. Thank you.
Mr. Savetti.
So just based on the numbers, again, everybody's throwing out different numbers, but me sitting here, everybody wants to keep ignoring the state aid component for education. In total, the school department's proposed budget submitted to the town compared to the fiscal 24 budget was a $3,024,000 increase, 3.85%. The ending number in the provisional budget is the school's getting 1.3 million, which is a 1.65% increase. Those are the actual numbers.
Just state your name and address for the record.
Tim Carroll, 31 Highland Ave. So it seems to me that there's just so much resentment between the town council and the school committee. Everybody's kind of just has all this bad feelings, and there's a lot of failures in the past, probably on both committees. And you guys are just kind of taking it out on each other. And I think that you guys have immense pressure, whether it be the sanitation issues or whether it be, whatever, all of the town issues. And you just kind of are viewing these guys as like, we need more money, and you're trying to get pressure off your back from the community as far as all of the needs of the town. They're kind of constantly emailing you. And it just seems like there's this total breakdown as far as like you guys being against each other. You know, it's town needs, you know, yeah, we need sanitation. We need schools too. Like, and I mean, it's kind of on both ends. My guy over here, you know, he got up and he's kind of real angry at you. You're really angry at him. I just don't understand where the breakdown is on the state needs, the town needs. Like, we need all of these things. The kids need education. They need teaching. They need teachers in the school. You know, if a septic system fails, that's not anybody's fault. Nobody's blaming you if you have to allocate money to fix that septic. You know, nobody's blaming you because sanitation, I mean, well, they are, but they shouldn't be blaming you because a truck breaks down because they were all bought at the same time. Like, things happen, things need to be fixed, and things require money, and we need to use the money that we have appropriately. And I'm not saying that necessarily if the school asks for, you know, $2 million, whatever it is, that they need necessarily every single penny, but it sounds like they probably do, because they're constantly just running ragged, just trying to patchwork everything. And I don't know if there's any state assistance that we can come up with where we can find some money for these, like, you know, emergency situations that keep coming up, but it's really a shame that just this complete breakdown as far as, like, you know, just the anger that you guys have towards each other. Like, we're all should be working towards the same goals. I mean, you guys are losing sight that we're talking about kids here. We're not talking about, I mean, we're talking about budgets. We're talking about spreadsheets. We're talking about numbers. We're talking about kids at the end of the day. And, like, don't let any of this stuff going between you two, like, affect the kids. You know, I mean, we have a lot of budgetary issues across the board, and that has to do with the school and the town council. Like, we are where we are, and let's just move forward and do the best we can with what we have right now. Is there anything that we could work out with extra funding from the state to fix some of this stuff that's going on? I mean, no, we have schools without water. That's insane to me. The state won't give it to us. Like, why aren't we, like, as a town council and as a school committee, why aren't we getting involved with the news and just getting that message out there? Like, we don't have clean drinking water. We have plumbing failures and we can't pay for it. It's insane.
The $25 million bond is going to help a lot of these problems. We also got a $3.4 million grant from Senator Reed for the high school sewer project. So we are trying to utilize additional resources outside of the budget in order to address some of the needs for the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of silly, but I would like to ask one more question. It would be really nice if you guys could just say something nice about each other, because I think that maybe you guys should hug it out after this meeting or something. It's
I'm
just
jealous of Jason's hair. James' hair.
You know, a lot of this, I mean, I'm joking, but a lot of this stuff just really seems to be like, you guys have a lot of pressure on you. They have a lot of pressure on them, and you're just blaming each other for it. And that's not the case, and it shouldn't be. Like, the town has needs, and the school is part of those needs, and they should get, you know, they should get the money that they need. Thank you.
We do have a hand up on Zoom. Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Melissa Nelson, 23 Hornbeam Road. So my question is, are the school buildings considered town capital?
They are town-owned buildings, yes, that the school occupies.
Okay, but they are town capital. So just like the roads have kind of been let go and the sidewalks, and we're trying to put money towards that, it then falls on the town to also maintain these buildings too. At the end of the day, right? They're town buildings.
The school has its own facilities director and its own school facilities operations in order to fulfill the maintenance that's required for these buildings. The town doesn't maintain them.
Okay,
Mr.
but
Savetti, can you just
at the end of the day, if one of the schools were did what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, I just was asking the finance director to outline the minimum maintenance requirement.
Yeah, so part of the state requirement that came in effect a few years ago now, several years ago, but has been increased. The school's budget is supposed to include 3% for the ongoing maintenance of all the school buildings. So to ensure the upkeep and maintenance of the buildings, 3% of their budget is supposed to be allocated towards that. And part of what we're not even discussing this evening, though, is the shortfalls that they projected in their maintenance budget. We're hopeful with the bond that's going to get passed that helps close that gap and we'll be able to meet that maintenance requirement. But right now, the superintendent could speak to it more than I can. They're familiar with their numbers. I believe there's shortfalls in that maintenance requirement. But again, although the buildings are maintained or are owned by the town, they are part of the school department's budget and required to be maintained in the school department's budget.
But at the end of the day, they still are town-owned buildings. So if something were to go detrimentally wrong with them that the school couldn't afford to fix. So, I mean, if I lived in the house that my father owned, which I do not, but if I lived in the house that my father owned and something failed drastically that I couldn't afford to fix, at the end of the day, it is his house. And as horrible as that would be, there would have to be some stepping in to keep the house from being condemned, right? Like the town would eventually have some responsibility to keep these buildings from failing to the point where they're no longer to be able to be used. Is that correct or no?
Well, yes, and that's why we've stepped in order to get the grant, in order to fix the sewer system. And we've also intervened with the pump truck and trying to get that taken care of. So there is, at the end of the day, again, it's one budget, one town budget. So we step in when the school has these large issues that we can help them out with.
Right. So you're being a good dad, quote unquote, in that situation. But my point is, then you're turning around and blaming the schools for those things and saying, you know, you're saying it the way you just said it. It sounds like you're doing it so nice. You're helping us out. But then the way it's being said earlier is that, well, we're not going to help you with any of your financial costs. We're not going to help you with your operating costs because we did these other nice things for you. So that's the concern, is that these are, at the end of the day, town buildings. So if they're town buildings and you need to step in to help because the school is literally struggling to just operate, how can you then turn around and blame the school for the septic failing and for the water failing and for all of these things, and then turn around in your next breath and say, but we did these nice things to help you out with those? That doesn't make sense. And as a taxpayer, it's aggravating actually to hear like this kind of ping pong of, you know, yeah, we need to maintain these buildings, but then we're going to turn around and blame you for the things that are going wrong with the buildings when we're not maintaining, you know, it's just this whole kind of back and forth. So I'm sorry if I get a little mixed up at the end there, but the story has to be the same. At the end of the day, they're town-owned buildings. If the schools cannot afford their operating costs and to maintain the buildings, the town has to step in. And it shouldn't be a blame game at that point. We're one town, we should be working together. Thank you.
Manager Parrillo, when the third-party consultants came in, Fuss and O'Neill, to evaluate the wastewater system at the high school, what did they find in terms of the damage and why it wasn't operating?
In large part, it was just a lack of maintenance over the last 10 plus years. Got it to the point where it just wasn't sustainable. It wasn't fixable. It had to be totally replaced. And I think that was, again, I wasn't here, but I think a lot of transition on the school department regarding maintenance facilities, and for whatever reason that wasn't addressed and wasn't taken care of. So it's at the point now where it needs full replacement.
Yeah, and I give Superintendent Cowart credit for bringing that to our attention, but it was something that if we knew 10 years ago or sooner that it was failing, it could have been a lot less expensive of a fix, I would imagine. But now that it doesn't work at all, that creates an issue. But come on.
The only other thing I was going to add is that, not this council, but we've provided capital lists for years. That wastewater treatment facility at the high school has been on a capital list for years. Not this council, but other councils have not provided capital. And when we've been in a position where we've had to cut, it often came from capital. You know that. That's not a story I'm telling you for the first time. And so I don't want to put the blame just on the turnover of staff or the workers not maintaining it. I think part of the problem was it's a big facility. It processes wastewater for 1,700 people. and it's old, it's a poor design, and the parts are not available. And so they kind of use a MacGyver process to try to keep the whole thing working. And that stopped working. And that's when I brought it to the council and to the committee to say, listen, I know this is going to be expensive. I know this is going to have an impact on the town. I don't regret bringing that forward because not only would it impact the school, but it would impact the whole community around that school. We already knew there was going to be problems because it was beginning to smell. And so it needed to be fixed. I'm happy to be the guy that says this needs to be fixed. It's unfortunate that it's taken this path because it's impacted all of us, but it's a combination of an old facility, a poor design, and lack of capital for a lot of years to pay for the upkeep, and to the point where you couldn't get parts anymore. They did recommend a few other solutions. One solution was to fix it. That really wasn't viable because of parts. One solution was to put a retrofit system in the location or to bring something on site to process wastewater. That's not a good long-term solution. Another solution was to do a septic system, a new septic system, which would require 2+ acres of land, dig up and put a new septic system, a more up-to-date, efficient system. And then the third option was to go and connect to a sewer line. And knowing that the town has a multi-year plan in place, knowing that at some point we're going to be bringing sewer lines down Tioga Reservoir Road, it seemed to make more sense to be forward thinking and say, let's connect to the sewer than to dig a septic system and then, have sewers come down the road 5 years later. So that's kind of how we ended up where we're at. But I think it was a collaborative process. I mean, we worked together on all of that.
Sanderson's been meeting in the back.
Tammy Anderson, 5710 Flat River Road. Okay. So I know in the town charter, it says the town council has to approve all the contracts. They have approved the police, they are funding that. You've approved the municipal, you're funding that. You also approved the CTA and the SRP contracts, and those need to be funded as well. We are also town workers and we need to be respected as well.
Councilwoman Shockley.
Just to kind of equate the sewer issue to a town issue that we're currently grappling with. A number of years ago, we chose to bond for garbage trucks. Part of that decision by that town council was to continue to put money into the budget year over year in order to be able to replace those trucks over time. That didn't happen. Probably for the same reason the sewer didn't get fixed. The money wasn't there for the future because we didn't have the money for the present. Now we still have a number of years to pay for those trucks, but have decided as a town we want to keep a garbage program. And so instead of saying you made a mistake 10 years ago, you shouldn't have bought those trucks, now you're going to have to just deal with your broken trucks. We're working out ways that we're buying new trucks and we're keeping the program moving forward, even though mistakes were made in the past in that program. And I just think it's really something that you should equate. Like these things we're seeing for the town, it's the same for the schools.
We have someone on Zoom. Unmute yourself and please state your name and address for the record.
Christopher DeBoer, 14 Nelson Capitol Road. I just want to go back to kind of compound what Melissa was saying on Zoom earlier about the way that it's going back and forth between the town council and the school committee. I just want to say, ultimately, you guys don't have control over how they actually allocate money, and I get that. But it's kind of like you own the building, so you're like the landlord. If you own a property and you're a landlord, you can't go telling your tenants that they have to replace the septic system because it went. And I think that's kind of what Melissa was trying to get to, kind of a point on. I think both town and the school department has been mismanaged for multiple years, and again, I want to applaud you guys because you guys have been working on fixing the town budget and getting us back on track. Because we all know that right now financially, municipal and school, we're almost at a critical mass where we were going to probably be taken over by the state. I think we're working in a positive way to get out of that. And I'm just hoping that you guys can work with the school committee and, you know, try to come up with a resolution, you know, not only to fix the capital improvements, but fund what you need to for them going forward. Again, going back to what Mr. LeBlanc was saying, with just allocating the money and earmarking it for them every year, which we've done in the past, I don't think that's a great way to go about it. We have to continue to put money into our school, unfortunately, the way you would if you owned a property and you were a landlord. That's all I wanted to make a comment on.
Next on Zoom, please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Alexandra Austin, 24 Ames Street. I just want to say that I just looked it up and it is roughly $406,000 to buy a home in this town. One single home in this town. For me to be able to put my 2 children into a house and have a roof over their heads. And I find it absolutely ridiculous that we would give Superintendent Cowart $225,000. Can't even buy a home with that here. But to give him $225,000 to operate several schools, take care of thousands of students adequately, give them an education that they're supposed to have, and we are somehow going to throw in the cost of sewer systems. That money was allocated from the state. You guys got funding from the state. Now, I'm not sure if it is that funding needs to be paid back or if it was a grant, but if it's a grant and if we do not need to pay it back, that should not be thrown in anybody's face at all. If it does need to be paid back, I would assume that would be over time. I think that if I can't buy a single family home for less than $400,000 for it to be, usable, and I wouldn't need to take out a 203K loan, I think it's ridiculous that we want to operate school systems that way. So I do think that we need to revisit the budget. I do think that there needs to be reasonable talks back and forth. I think that we should stop with narcissistic comments about what we've done versus what else needs to be done. I understand that this has been decades long. I went to the Coventry school system. I was there from kindergarten on, and all I have seen time and time again is this back and forth war between the school committee and the town council. And I understand that the townspeople, myself included, we sat back and we didn't do enough. I'll take responsibility for that, and I think everybody else in the town should too. But enough is enough. We can't expect the schools to get out of the budget if they're not given a little bit of extra money. And I think that to give them $225,000 is a slap in the face if a single family can't buy a home for that price. Everything has gone up. Inflation is up. I'm sure the cost of markers alone is exponential in comparison to where it was 5 years ago. And I think that we need to allocate for that. To give them nearly the same budget every single year when the cost of strawberries for me at the grocery store has gone up, nearly 100%, I think that's just absurd. So I think that we do need to give Cowart some grace. I understand that your costs have gone up as well, but to give them the percentage that you have is honestly, It's just a shame, in my opinion. If I could lose my children, if I don't provide them with everything that they need, you should lose your seat if you don't provide our children with everything that they need. And that's my opinion.
Next, great name. I like 2 L's, but just unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Thanks. Hillary Connors, 2 Woodmiss Circle. I just want to make 2 quick comments. One, I wanted to echo the comments from Kelly Aronakis about dedicating percentage of the budget to that amount of workers. Yes, they have a bigger portion of the budget, but there are more people being represented, more workers, and more needs being represented in that portion of what should go there should be equitable. And then the second comment I had was, I just heard someone say like, oh, well, we're hearing from one small portion of the population here, you know, a lot of people talking about the schools, but then there's on the other hand, people complaining that no one ever shows up. But we're talking about moving forward and helping schools. We're here, we're showing up. So it's not enough. It never is, especially in Coventry. I get that, but we're trying and we're here. So we should have a say. We should be able to look at the people who are here today, who are advocating and who are showing up, because obviously it's that important if these are the only people or kinds of people showing up advocating for the schools. You know, people don't move here because there's you know, really exciting things happening in this town. They move here for schools and families. That's it. Thanks.
Any other comments, public hearing?
Chris Taverna, 1 Marion Drive. Just wanted to throw out a few things because I've heard some different percentages thrown out there tonight. As far as the, you know, the school's budget, there's the state aid, which, you know, the town council and we don't have control over that. And we don't have any control over the increases of that. But what we do have is the real estate taxes that the town budgets for and what can be appropriated, you know, or allocated to the school and other town departments. So when I heard percentages, I wanted to share an analysis that had been started by one of the previous finance directors, Sarah Mangiarelli, and we sort of continued it just to try to provide some perspective. It started with looking at the fiscal year 2010, 2011, when the town had real estate taxes budgeted for 56.2 million. And at that time, about 41.5 million was allocated to the school. So that represented about 74% of those general property real estate taxes. Over the 14 years that we had some of the audited information to pull the information together for the analysis, it went the town's real estate property taxes were the budgeted amount in 2023 to 2024 was 78.4 million, and the school was allocated $50.5 million in that most recent year. So that change that started at the school in 2010 to 2011 was allocated 74% of those property taxes, and over those years it has decreased pretty steadily until fiscal year 24, where it was at 64%. So from 74 to 64%. I agreed to during the time, you know, if the town is growing, to Councilwoman Lima's comments before of needing to provide more for the community, that makes sense as well. But I just wanted to show, you know, just share that so you have that perspective over that 14-year period. The increase in the property taxes that have been allocated to the school, it's gone up $8,943,208 over those 14 years. So if you just do some simple math, it's about $638,800 a year average, right? That of an increase that is provided to the school department. So when you look at the current proposed allocation to the school, I know we're at the 225,000, but we've already mentioned the cell phone tower revenue that's been recurring is now included in that. So it's really $150,000. And you compare that just to the average of about 638,000. You're at about 23% this year of the average that's been allocated. So, I just wanted to provide that as food for thought as you consider the budget or any amendments, and given the financial condition, and what it may take to improve the situation and get out of that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councilwoman Shockley.
I just wanted to state that the school ask was $2,020,957. I think we could subtract out 56,000 because they did get 56,000 more in state aid than they expected, according to what they had budgeted for. And I'm just going with items that are within that budget. The current allocated budget is 151,929. I'm counting the 74,000 in a separate line item, even though we're counting it together in the appropriation. I just want to point out that if you include the pilot money and bond payment, I see where we could cut $960,000 from the town budget and still be giving over $300,000 to capital, $95,000 for capital lease for DPW, $85,000 to snow removal, $400,000 to road improvements, $100,000 to sidewalk repairs, $1.56 million to police pay, and $600,000 to our town solicitor. So we're still funding all those lines at those levels, and we could have an additional $960,000 given to the schools. And I don't even think we should give $960,000 to the schools. I think, if we ended up at a 50%, that would seem reasonable to me. I'm just saying that keeping all those line items not just intact, but relatively robust, we could move that money to the schools.
Is there any additional comment? Members of the council, public? Any additional comment from Zoom? All right. With that, I will take a motion to close public hearing.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, motion passes.
We'll now move to public comment for undocketed items. This is public comment for items that were not on our docket this evening. You can come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Any members of the public on Zoom? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment on undocketed items is closed. At this time, I'll seek a motion to adjourn at 9:03 p.m.
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Councilmember Shockley. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye. We stand adjourned.